might take me a second. I gotta fix all of this.
So, dude.
I see you still haven't fixed your wall.
Of course not. Although I should have had Tiberius fix it while he was here.
Tiberius, was that your house?
No, not at my house. Like that was the plan, was to have him come over and then actually fix my router. To do it on live stream.
Is that a handprint?
Yeah, it's a picture my son made for me.
Sweet.
Cute little piece of artwork.
I'm really dark for some reason, and I don't know why. My room is like fully lit, and yet I'm like sat in shadow. I don't know what the reason.
Are the lights going directly on you? Maybe it's a contrast setting.
Maybe it is a contrast setting. I'll see if I can fix that. People can still see me though, right? I'm not like a total fucking silhouette.
Not quite.
Not quite. Almost there. It's quite late at night, to be fair.
It adds an edge to you, and it gives you some grunge.
A mystery.
Like it. Yeah, it was pretty dark.
I mean, it's like, to be fair, it is like 2 a.m.
I'll be right back. You guys are live. Just keep that in mind.
That's fine.
And if anybody else jumps in, Fallen Hour, if you'll just let them know that we are live, and I'll be back.
Yeah, don't say any gamer words,
some foul shit when he leaves.
I gotta fix my camera.
Yeah, I'm Welsh, not only the English are British. I'm Welsh, although I don't have the accent, sadly.
So you're really Roman.
Oh, mate, I'm down for that.
I've been on an ancient history kick lately, so it's like pretty much everyone in Europe is Roman.
Oh, dude, ancient Rome is like my favorite period in history.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, I love their engineering. Like, it makes me really sad, like a modern day architect engineer, looking at their designs and things, and it's just like they had terracotta piping for plumbing, and their plumbing systems were more organic and advanced and natural, like 2,000 years ago than what we have today. And I'm like,
what do you mean advanced?
So they had more advanced forms of plumbing systems. Some of the plumbing systems that they actually had in place, we still can't replicate to this day. And it's mind blowing. Like, for instance, they leveraged positive pressure flow systems for running water for plumbing actively throughout their houses and throughout their cities. And so they brought active flowing plumbing to over 1 million people. And we struggle to do that today. And I laugh about shit like that, because it's like they did it with terracotta plumbing piping. Like they actually they baked their pipes, and it's amazing because the systems were so effective, and they still are. I've been to Rome with my wife, and we've seen those fountains, and they're just breathtaking. Like to the idea that someone built that thing 2,000 years ago, and it's putting out that much water that beautifully on the same plumbing that was there before is just mind-blowing. And it's a sight to see. What was the name of that fountain that we saw?
I'm trying to remember the name of it, because I've been to Rome myself.
The what? The Fountain of the Four Rivers was one of them.
Isn't that what happens when you build your stuff out of stone? It lasts.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like it actually lasts, but they didn't just make concrete. They made the equivalency of first generation modern concrete. So their concrete building and stonemasonry was 2,000 years in the future. Like it's crazy. Like the stuff that they were making was just breathtaking. And I've started to actually watch the videos on the engineering side so that it puts more emphasis on their structural design. And like replicating some of the things that they built, you when you start to build it, you're like, this is so dumb. And then like as you start to build it, you're just like, holy shit, this is super effective. And you're just like, oh my god, this is genius by the time you're done. And then you're just like, it was like 30%, 40%, 60% reduction in material. Same material, stronger structural load, lower weight ratios, higher tensile strength. And you're like, from fucking material that's like 2,000 years old. Like they have roads. Like if I hadn't stood on these roads, I would say you're fucking lying. I would say I'm fucking lying. But I stood on their roads.
Yeah, man.
That they built 2,000 years ago. They're still there, and they're still better than Maryland's roads today.
Did you
better than Atlantic Canada's roads too.
Yeah, they don't do potholes. It's not a thing. Like the one thing I never found was a pothole.
I mean, they also didn't have cars, right?
No,
Yeah.
they had.
No.
Well,
But-
Or
I don't
trucks.
know.
But that's
I
the
don't
thing.
know.
It's like they had chariots. That was worse because there's no shock absorption. There's no
yeah,
rubber.
yeah,
it's wood on stone, metal
I
on
mean, it's
metal.
worth for the chariot, but not for the road, right? I don't think like
No,
a
it's
truck
worth for the
going
road
from the
too.
road.
And part of the thing is how they built it. So when you look at how they would build a road, it's like normally you have a flat road blacktop, and it's about 3 to 6 inches of blacktop tops. Theirs are 4 feet thick. And
Yeah.
so what they do is they actually dig it out. The first thing they do is they dig it out, they level it, they run it in straight lines, and then they would drop rock crush, effectively what we would call today's rock crush. It's river rock. And then on top of the river rock, they would sit more rock, crushed rubble, and then on top of that, they would set large stone, and then they would fill it in. And then they on the sides, they would have retaining walls made out of stone. So they would take blocks about yay big, angled about like this, and then they would sit it on the side of the road. And it would actually have a shelf that it would sit on. And then it would be a stone beside a stone beside a stone for miles. But then the inside of that was filled in. And so it actually effectively turned it into one rock. So they brought in crush, effectively what we would call a crush and run, and today's crush and run equivalent, fill it in with crush and run, and then on top of that they would put heavy rock, and then on top of that they would pour in concrete in between and fill it in to make it effectively one stone. And that's their road systems that are still physically there, and they're still in good condition as if they delayed it yesterday.
All right. Okay.
It's made of
I'm
4
not
feet
going to be
stone.
able to get my camera working, so we're going to go ahead and start it like this. I appreciate everybody joining. Mostly, most everybody who was invited because they signed up for panels inside of Danabo's Discord. We want to kind of do a panel to get to know you guys, figure out like where you are ideologically. You may say this is where I end up ideologically, and I might disagree with you. So I would I would like to figure
That's
it
fair.
out. And normally, like when we do panels, we have to figure out like what the topics are, and we have to make sure that if we're doing like 3 versus 3, 3 leaning people and 3 left leaning people, that each one of them is going to lean left on or right on each one of those topics. That it will be 3v3 on each topic, and it won't turn into like 5 versus 1 or 4 versus 2 or something like that. So we want to kind of get an idea of where you end up on most topics.
Sure.
So that's one of the ideas of this. But in general, we do these like walk-on panels on a consistent basis here anyways. I figured this would be a good way to get to know you guys. Lots of you guys, we watched your videos on stream the other day. Um, Gabe, we actually enjoyed yours a lot, dude. It
Hey,
was,
thanks. Which one did you watch?
we watched your introduction video,
Oh.
your trailer.
Oh yeah. How did you like it? You said you liked it a lot. What
Yeah.
did you think about the ideas?
Yeah, it was really good. We had a debate over whether or not you were wearing eyeliner or not.
Oh yeah, I was wearing eyeliner.
Okay.
Nice.
We were that's but all right. And then I think it's is it Tiger? Is that how you say it?
Yeah, it is. It's
Ha-
Tiger Dogs.
How old are you, Tiger?
I'm 17.
17. Okay. All right. And then the other one that's currently here, we have a bunch more that are going to jump in later. Cadmus, I think you were in my chat last night, right?
I was.
Okay. And you're Welsh, right?
I am indeed.
You are not the Aussie. You are
I'm
the
not
Welsh.
Australian. I do apologize. I do not have a sexy Australian accent, might I say.
It's all right. You can practice, and maybe you'll get it down eventually.
Maybe.
All right. So the first topic that we're going to pull up is more of a philosophical topic. The question is going to be, is it let's see. Let me I should have written this one down. Is it are you consenting to the outcomes of something by consenting to the action itself. So, say there are a number of side effects to an action, and you take that action understanding that those are side effects of the action. Are you consenting to the side effects as well? So, say like you get in a car and you're going to drive a car. You understand that there is a certain chance that you could get into an accident.
Yeah.
Are you consenting to getting into an accident when you do this? So I guess we'll start with Top Dolphin. Let him go first.
Okay. I don't. I haven't really thought about this, but I guess I would say that like, um, if the action, like the outcome is reasonably like a reasonable, like, what's the word, like, is reasonably downstream from the action, then we could probably say you're accountable. For example, like drunk driving. Like we take people who drink alcohol and then drive responsible for their actions, because like it's pretty reasonable that like if you get into an accident and you're drunk, you weren't able to control the car. But like we wouldn't say that if someone like sneezed and like fell into someone and pushed someone on the railroad tracks, that person's like a murderer.
True. Yeah. Anybody can jump in now if they want.
Yeah, sure. I want to understand more what you mean by consent, because if you run this down, if you're a woman and you're walking at night, there's a chance that you might get raped. Are you consenting to get raped? Which is like kind of contradictory. So yeah, could you explain further what do you mean by consent?
I don't know that we could qualify the chances of getting raped just by walking at night, right? I don't know that we could actually say we know what the chances of walking at night are, or
Yeah.
what the chances of getting raped are just by walking at night. Now, maybe we could say,
Okay, let's
having-
say, sorry to interrupt you. Let's say you live in New Zealand and you move to Mexico, and there's like the rate of rapes for New Zealand is quite lower than in Mexico. And you know both of these rates. Are you consenting to be more likely to be raped? Like in that,
Well,
in that aspect?
I mean, it's
I
different
think
because
I think the issue here is there's a misconception of risk versus consent, and risk exposure or acceptance of risk does not correlate to consent.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
yeah. Also, like the
Yeah.
difference is like we pretty clearly generally when it comes to like holding somebody responsible for an action, we draw the line at when another person needs to commit an action generally. So for example, when you get raped, right? You don't go out and then like you're not the one committing the rape, right? You are walking down the street and somebody else has to like take an action to rape you. So then we would say that, oh well, that person's at fault, not you.
So you're saying that we would, in the sense that the question was asked, we would only be consenting to inaction, sort of say, like
I mean,
not
we
to
would,
not other actors performing actions, just like I don't know, consequences without actors. I don't know.
yeah. I mean, I think
I think what's more specifically being said is that the only consent that occurs is that you're consenting to additional risk. As for rape itself, you can never consent to rape because
Yeah,
by
of course.
definition it is
Yeah, it's
it is in
contradictory.
violation of consent. Yeah, you can never consent to rape. And
I
Yeah.
think
so
more what I'm saying
But
is
can
that
you- can you consent to the chances of being raped? Can
yes, you can
consent to
accept
a higher
risk.
chance?
Correct. Yeah, you can accept risk. And that's what I try to get people to understand a lot is you can consent to incredibly risky behavior, and then when something bad happens to you, is it bad? Absolutely. Are you partially to blame? Yes. If I
Wait,
go out
but walk.
into hang on. So to describe this, if I cut myself and then I jump into a vat of piranhas and I'm swimming with these piranhas, they're incredibly aggressive fish. They're known to attack things that are bleeding or look injured or appear injured or that are bleeding. If I jump into this vat of piranhas, did the piranhas eat me? Yes. Did they bite me? Yes. Is it bad? Yes. Did I do something high risk? Absolutely. Is there a chance that I'm going to suffer consequences from that? Yes. Am I partly to blame? Yes is the answer. A lot of people don't like that. If you expose yourself to excessive levels of risk, you are going to suffer consequences and injury at some point. Is it acceptable? No, it is not. Is rape wrong? Absolutely. Is it immoral? Yes. Did the victim have some part to play in that whatsoever? Yes, they did. Because they put themselves into a bad situation.
Absolutely
things
not.
happen.
You're absolutely
yes.
incorrect, Doug. No, because there's
no.
wait. There's a complete difference between jumping to a vat of piranhas and walking outside at night. All right?
Yeah.
Walking outside at night, if no other person takes an action, you can't be assaulted, you can't be raped, you can't be like run over in the middle of a street. Like if no other person takes an action, that never happens. So the fault of that action doesn't fall on you. When you jump into a vat of piranhas bleeding, you're the one taking the action that has the consequence.
No, you are taking a risk. Distinctively a risk.
No, you are taking an action that has risks with it.
So walking out your door isn't taking a risk.
I mean, yeah, it's taking a risk that like a lot of things, but we don't hold people. But wait, we don't hold people accountable for risks that involve other people taking actions.
I do hold people accountable for taking risk.
Real quick, can we?
I'm not blaming you for being. Hang on. Hang on. Let me define this.
No. Hold on. Can we use different hypotheticals than rape for this?
Sure. Let's use murder.
I've got one right here.
Let's use murder.
Here. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go.
I think we're jumping way too extreme ideas here for rape and murder. There's a whole different topic of what I think the topic here was about. So an example would be medication. You're telling me when you get medication, it has this list of all these side effects that you could possibly get. Like the person is somehow responsible if they get those side effects. They've been prescribed this medication.
I mean, yeah, because there's no other person
the risk.
Creating a risk there. Now, if someone doesn't disclose the side effects to that person, then that we're supposed to be disclosed, then we count that as like not your fault. It's the person who committed fraud's fault.
It's still your fault.
No,
it literally can be your fault.
If you have to take the medication, how is that your fault? If you have to take the medication?
If you don't have information about the side effects, or somebody fails to disclose you that information when that was the responsibility, it's not your responsibility, or it's not your fault.
Okay.
No.
All right, follow an hour. Can I ask you?
Yeah. Why would you disagree?
Real quick, let me frame this real quick. Within this question, you are always weighing the good versus the bad. If you understand that something is going to be a side effect or a negative consequence, you are always weighing that versus what it is that you want out of this, or why you want to commit this action in the first place, and whether or not those consequences or that risk is worth the good consequences of this action, right?
You're correct, but there's a massive difference between a consequence that comes directly from your action and a consequence that comes as the result of an action taken by another person.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between accepting the risk of side effects of medication and the difference of a woman going out at night does not mean that she accepts the risk of being raped. She has
No, she does.
No, she doesn't.
If you take an action, you accept the risk of that action.
No. You can maybe be aware that there's a risk, but that does not mean that she is accepting of that happening to her.
I think we can make a distinguishment here between uninformed and informed consent.
I don't think you can give consent without proper information, or as much information as you have.
Yeah.
That's why
we said you have to understand the consequences.
Yeah, if you understand the consequences.
In this question, you have to understand the consequences.
No, you don't. You don't have to understand the consequences.
Well, then you have no idea what you're talking about.
Posed to you, Fallen Hour, in the question posed to you, you have to understand the consequences in order to answer this question. So yes, it is part of the question. If you understand the consequences, are you consenting to the consequences of the action by consenting to the action?
But that's a flawed logic, because you don't have to understand the consequences to still suffer the consequences.
That's a different question. That's a completely different question.
He's not asking in general if that's what happens. He's presenting you with a specific hypothetical.
Oh, so it's a case. Okay.
Yeah.
So you understand the consequences. Yes. So you're accepting the risk. That's so yes, you are responsible. If you ever accept risk,
responsibility. He's asking, are you consenting?
If you consent to risk, yes, you are consenting to risk. Are you consenting to the activity? No. So there is a distinctive difference. You are consenting to risk. You're not accepting the activity. You can accept a risk. If I go outside in the middle of downtown Baghdad, it's a dangerous place. I am accepting going outside as a risk. It is a risk. I accept that risk because I'm in Baghdad in the first place. I'm accepting the risk of even being in Baghdad. That's my first risk I have accepted. Now that I am in Baghdad, I am further accepting additional risk of leaving the structure or facility that I'm in and leaving it onto a location, a patrol. The third risk that I encounter is someone else has taken an action against my will that is going to cause me harm. Did I consent to that? No, I did not. Did I accept the risk of that? Yes, I did, because I'm in Baghdad in the first place, and I have left the structure and the safety of the facility that I'm in. I have accepted 2 sets of risk that have put me in a position to where someone can act upon me in a negative way. Am I to blame for being there? Yes, because I consented to be there. Am I responsible for what they did? No, they are responsible for what they did. That is the distinctive defining line. If you put yourself out at risk in a risky situation, like the example that was given, being in New Zealand versus being in Mexico, where you are is a choice.
I like that.
If you're where you're at, that is a choice.
I mean, is it though?
A choice.
I feel that accepting the risk is there is a difference there between that and consent, because
there is. That is correct. There is a difference between accepting risk and consent in a sexual or otherwise manner. If I step into an arena with you, for instance, I have both accepted risk and consented for you to conduct violence against me. However, if I am out on the streets, I have accepted the risk that someone may try to attempt to conduct violence against me. I have not consented to that violence. That is another great way to describe it.
The answer to the question would be no. You don't agree that you're consenting to like possible side effects.
You are not consenting to the action that occurs to you. You are consenting to the risk. If I go over to my cabinet,
you made a distinction before. You said that you weren't consenting, you were accepting. So I think
you are accepting, and that's what I'm saying. Is like for medications, for instance, the medications that I took gave me suicidal thoughts. I quit taking them. Am I to blame for the suicidal thoughts that I had? Yes, because I willingly took the medication.
Okay, so when you're saying blame, could you explain further what you mean by blame?
Yes. So there's a distinctive difference between blame and consent. If I do something willfully, that is consent. I have conducted an action. If you conduct something against me, that is blame. If I did not consent to that action or activity.
Can we use, instead of blame, can you say like at fault?
Responsibility, for instance.
Yeah,
or fault.
That's not the same thing.
Or consequence. Like for instance, with consequence. If I go and I take these medications and they do something that causes me bodily harm, did I consent to taking the medication? Yes. Did I consent to the risk? Yes. Did I take the medication? Yes. Am I to blame for taking the medication? Yes. Am I to blame for the side effect? No. Because the side effect would never have occurred had you told me what it was, because I never would have consented. That is responsibility or blame, as you would like to put it.
No, but the part of the question here is that you would know about the side effects.
If I knew about the side effects and I took the medication, then I am 100% responsible. Because I took the medication knowing that there was a side effect that I could get.
Let me lay this out for you again. It's not about whether or not you're responsible. It's about whether or not you are consenting to the side effects.
Yes. If I took the medication and I knew about the side effects, then I consented to the side effects.
Okay. So, Tom, just to repeat the question I made earlier in the conversation, could you explain further what you mean by consenting to the side effects or consenting to the consequences?
Yeah, so we're asking like if, let me see if I can explain this. I'm not sure that I can go further than that. Consenting meaning that you are giving almost permission for these to happen.
So yeah, that's why
that would not be consent.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to make the distinction, because depending on what we understand by consent, would be my answer. So if you're like if you're saying that giving permission, I don't think that that's correct. There's like multiple layers.
It's very simple.
It's not multiple layers. It's one thing. Either you gave consent or you didn't.
Yeah, but
No,
you
but
can't
there's-
consent to actions committed by other people unless like that person gives you permission to, unless you give that person permission to commit that action.
Yeah, just
Yeah, or you
yeah.
expose yourself to the risk for it to be conducted.
No,
Right.
no,
No,
So
that's
now
not
you're
true.
making it
If you
Oh.
pull over, if you pull over on the side of the road, or like if you pull into like a very unlit area, and you have to consent to, there's a chance that you might get robbed or carjacked.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, you
But there's
consent
no-
because you
There's
pulled over in the
steps-
first
there's
place.
steps that you can
It's like-
take to
Mhm.
minimize that risk or the chance of something happening to you.
Correct. The first being not pulling over there in the first place.
Right.
Okay,
Or
so
going
But,
to
but we
fast
will
forward.
So
we
what-
would
well, hold
we
on,
would
hold on,
never
hold
take a
on.
person who pulls over on the side of the road and like keep them like hold them responsible for getting like assaulted
Hang on,
or
hang on.
mugged
There's
when
a- hang on,
when
hang on.
somebody
You're-
else decides to assault or mug them.
Hang on,
Wait, wait,
you're misconstruing consent and responsibility. See, this is the delineating.
but
This is the
you're using
delineating
them
factor.
You're using them interchangeably. That's what
Yeah,
we're
No,
talking
I'm
about.
I feel
not.
like you're the one
No,
giving
I'm
it
not.
wrong.
No, yeah, I'm
no,
not. You're
no, I'm
doing it,
not.
bro.
I'm saying
let's
if
not have a meta conversation about the conversation. Just
I'm not having a meta conversation. I'm telling you, if you go somewhere that you consented to be at, you have put yourself at risk. You consented to that risk by being there in the first place, by willfully deciding to go there. You have put yourself at risk. You have consented to the risk.
So
Now,
you're
responsibility-
So is everyone
That is how
ever
that
is
works.
everybody on the
That's not how
planet
that
ever
works, man.
consenting to
That
be
is how that
murdered because
works.
at any point in time someone could break into your house and murder you? So is the entire
You're
planet constantly
consenting to risk.
consenting to the
It's
risk of being
for the side
murdered?
effects that happen.
So,
You're
And you have
consenting
to
to risk.
consent. You have to
Basically-
consent.
So-
Hold on. You have to consent to an action that has the risk attached to it. So if I say I left my doors unlocked and left my house,
Yes.
I am somewhat consenting to the risk of somebody breaking into my house.
Correct.
Yes.
No, you aren't
you-
consenting to the
no.
risk. You're accepting the risk. There's two different
You
things.
there's a
That's
difference,
what
yeah.
accepting means.
No,
is
it
you're
doesn't.
consenting to it.
No,
it
because
doesn't.
one means you're giving someone permission to come into your house and rob you, and one says you're accepting that someone could come into your house and rob you, but you're not giving that person permission to do so.
So, and to make the distinction clearer, because you're saying that they're the same thing, accepting and consenting. I'm sorry. What's your name? Top left, back with the wood on the
Balnar.
background.
Valinor?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Balnar. So, if you're saying that they're the same thing, what would be the distinction of you leaving your door open and then you going to someone burglarize his houses and telling them, "Hey, you can come rob my house"? What's the difference between those two?
Because you're not just consenting and accepting the risk, you're overtly seeking it out.
No,
That
but
would be
you're saying
going
they're the
that
same.
would be like saying
Okay, so
I'm
wait,
That'd
what?
be
is
like
the-
going to the streets of Baghdad and saying, "Yo, I'm here, shoot me."
yeah, I'm an American soldier and I'm like screaming this in the middle of the street with
Yeah,
a giant bag of
but what-
money and
what's the-
tons
what's
of
the
guns.
difference?
Like the distinctive
no.
difference is you are overtly taking action.
No.
Like you
the
you are
difference-
artificially increasing your risk versus you're consenting and accepting a risk.
But that doesn't matter to you because you already said accepting and consenting are the same thing.
They are the same thing. If you're
Oh,
you
yeah,
are
so if they're the
consenting,
sa- if they
if you are
consenting, you're
consenting
making
to
my
something,
argument
you
for
are
me, right?
automatically accepting something.
So hold on.
I understand what you mean, but if you think those two things are the same, then you're making my argument for me.
Consent, I would see accepting something is different than consent. Consent is giving permission for something to happen. Accepting the risk does not mean you give permission.
Yes, exactly. So that's where I'm trying to draw the distinction because it's very
You're
different.
hang
to-
on. I see what y'all are saying now. So y'all are misconstruing what permission and consent means.
They mean
So there's a
basically the same
distinctive-
thing.
no,
What's the
they do not.
distinction between-
No, you are
What's
you,
the distinction between consent?
So
someone
in-
consent to do
in the
something and giving them permission to
application-
do something?
in the application of consenting. For instance,
Uh-huh.
me going to Baghdad, I'm accepting a risk. I
Yes.
am consenting to go there.
So hold
By
on. can we-
physically,
But
hang on,
you
let me
said that
finish.
accepting and consenting is the same way.
Is the
or
same
using
thing.
accepting.
I'm
So hold
saying
on.
by consenting to the risk, I have accepted the risk. They
You
are
know-
distinctively the same.
Okay, so
Distinction
what is?
is the
Can I
same.
just ask you? Can we just straighten something out here? What is, Falno? What is your definition of consent? How do you define that?
So of consent, it's a means of accepting or agreeing to a particular topic, I guess topic or agreement or understanding,
Action.
or no, not action, but
Okay.
understanding.
The reason I ask, I've got the official definition here. So there's two. Number one, permission for something to happen or agreement to do something. Number two, give permission for something to happen. So permission is very much a part of consent. It is usually consent between people about, yes, you can do this. Yes, I'm okay with this happening. Being aware of
No,
the risk does
not
not
my
mean-
definition of consent. No, because
no,
Well,
permission.
you're just wrong. Wait, Fallen, can I ask Fallen a question?
1 second. Hold on.
Okay,
One
sure.
second.
Okay.
Cadmus, your
Yes.
mic is cutting in and out. It's
Yeah.
very I don't know
So-
what you call it, bubbly.
Let-
yeah.
Let me
Wait,
Okay.
wait,
let
Fal-
me give
So hold
a.
on, hold on. We're gonna go to Top Dolphin.
All right, Fallen, I have a question for you. So at any point in time, like fucking SEAL Team 6 can fucking break into anybody's house on the entire planet and just murder the fuck out of them. Are you consenting by living on Earth to being murdered by SEAL
You're
Team 6?
accepting the risk.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah,
we're
you're
talking
consenting
about-
by accepting the risk. It's an outrageous assessment, but yes.
I
then
mean,
they also
you're
consent to
consistent, but you
accept the
just
risk
don't
that
understand what consent means. Like that's that
No,
simple.
yeah.
No,
wait,
we're talking
uh,
about consenting to risk, not to the.
No, you can't
action
accept the
that may
risk. You
arise.
can you consent to an action, and every action may has risks that come
So
with
your
it.
answer
So
to
you're
this question
accepting
is
the
no,
risk
you
that comes around with an action.
So your
Why would
answer
just use a different word besides consent? Like we all agree that you agree to the risk. Like we seem to be agreement on that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the disagreement here is that Faulenor is arguing that consent doesn't mean permission. When what I'm trying to argue here is that
Yeah.
that's how even
That's
despite
how
what
it's defined.
despite what the dictionary says, because the dictionary is descriptive, not prescriptive. I think that most of the people in the world would connect those two words as the same, and that's
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's how I
what is
defined
Well, hang
it
on.
within
Well, let
the
me-
question. I defined consent as giving permission for
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
question.
regardless of the dictionary, even colloquially,
Yeah, colloquially, that's the understanding of the word.
I mean, that's just like the definition of the word, regardless.
Well,
Like,
let me disprove that with a simple statement.
You cannot disprove the
When-
colloquial.
absolutely, I can.
You can't
Let me
prove-
demonstrate. Let
wait,
me
let me-
demonstrate. Let
Well-
me demonstrate. Let me demonstrate. This is a very simple one.
Okay.
If I go and I take, for instance, my computer,
Yes.
and I put my computer on the internet, I have accepted risk, therefore I have consented. What I did not do is I did not give you permission. You do not have read, write, execute privileges on my system. And if you violate said permissions by forcing those permissions upon me, then you can be held responsible for that. I have accepted risk. I have consented. I did not tell you you could connect to my system. Accept,
Yes, but
consent,
wait, no, but
permission,
No.
permission,
we're talking about-
responsibility.
you're talking about two different things here. You're talking about the risk of it happening and it
Correct.
actually happening.
Correct.
You
There
did-
is a
you didn't
defining
get-
line
wait,
there, and that
yeah.
is the issue most people
wait, but
fail
you're
to
not.
fully
You don't. You
comprehend.
don't
When you put
consent
your
to risk.
computer on the- when you put
There
your
is.
computer
Yes,
on
you
the
do.
internet-
You do consent to risk.
When you put your computer on the internet, you consented. You gave permission to be exposed to that risk.
Correct.
not
You
consent-
accepted the risk.
Yes, you did
No,
not.
no, no.
consent,
Yeah.
You did not give permission.
permission
I did not give
for it to
permission.
actually happen.
Correct. And that
Yeah.
is the distinctive line. There is a very small line between consent and permission
No, no,
that
no,
a
no,
lot
no,
of
no,
people
no,
You're
fail
just
to
no,
understand.
wrong,
wait,
dude.
let me refute that, okay? Oh, let me try to refute that. So what? I'm sorry. Could you state your name again? KO Dave. Sorry.
Hi.
What KO Dave is saying is that you're consenting to being exposed to the risk. It doesn't mean that you're consenting to the actions, but that doesn't mean that consent and permission are two different concepts.
Correct. They are two different concepts, though.
No,
And that's the distinctive
okay.
difference. If I consent to risk and something bad happens to me, am I responsible for something bad happening to me? Yes. Am
So
I
yeah,
responsible
okay,
for
so
the action
my
itself?
problem-
We're talking about
No, is the
really-
answer.
My problem
So,
here
We're
is
not
that
here talking about responsibility. We're supposed to be talking about consent,
Yeah.
not responsibility.
Well, the downstream consent is responsible. So, like, by consenting to something, you are necessarily
Responsibility is
responsible,
downstream of it.
somewhat responsible to that thing. But like this is just not how like the concept of consent and permission work in the real world. Like, we don't say that like someone who like consents to being murdered because they like walk down the street. Like, that's just not how our world works.
I
Like,
don't think we said that. Yeah.
like you can't
They
consent.
consented to the risk. They did
Yeah,
not
but
but
consent to
not
the
the
murder.
action.
No, you accept that with some level there is some level of risk with like any action you take.
Yes,
But-
but in order to accept something, you have to consent to it.
But you don't. No,
No.
it's not true.
No, that's
Yes.
not the same. No.
Yes.
Because
No.
because
So let me- hang on, hang on.
you're
So let me-
you're wrong because on
semantics
the
at this
other
point.
side
No, it's not.
on
It's
the
very
other
important.
side of the like consent table there is another person. Like, consent, like, basically by definition, like, involves two people for the most part.
Yes.
And you have to give that other person permission, which is why consent and permission are the same thing, to commit said action upon to you. Now you can accept the risk that like some action might be taken upon to you without your consent, but you are not consenting to the risk. You're just accepting that the risk exists.
There you go.
No, you are consenting to the risk.
Well, you're just wrong.
No,
It's
you
like,
cannot
this is-
consent, okay, you cannot consent to the risk because there is not another party when you're taking that action, right? When I'm existing, when I'm choosing to continue to exist, there is not another specific party that I can give permission to. So therefore, I'm not. I cannot give consent to literally anything.
You're
that happens
consenting to
me.
yourself.
You cannot. Okay. If you cannot deny consent to yourself or give consent to
If you
yourself.
don't have consent, how can you give it?
What do you mean by that?
You can
If
give. You can give. Okay, so you can give consent because you're allowing people to do something to you.
You are accepting, exactly. You have to accept something before you can consent to it.
But it's different when you're talking about.
Yeah, but this is like necessary but not sufficient. So like accepting the risk to an action is necessary but not sufficient to consent to that risk of that action, or so consent to the action being done upon you itself. Like consent.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say consent, like in and of itself, is like basically an agreement you come to between two people. You don't have consent until you give it out. You come to consent, which is like an agreement between two people that like an action can be made.
No, that's not consensus. Consensus can be between.
Consensus has to do with multiple. Oh my god.
Yeah, more than one, as in two.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I think we should move on. He just doesn't know.
No, this is a simple concept. I'm amazed that so many people have a problem with this.
Yeah, well, the way you speak, you like have I'm sorry, but the entire governmental structure of every single society on the world disagrees with you. You're just wrong, buddy. Like this is how we assign blame. This is why when you walk out onto the street and you get murdered, we don't say, "Oh, you're responsible for getting murdered." No, we hold the other person responsible for murdering you.
Exactly. Responsible is not the same as consent
or
accepting.
But responsibility is downstream from consent. When you give.
No, it's not. Look at it from this perspective. You're driving a car. You get hit by somebody else. There are two parties. You accepted the risk when you got into the car. You consented to the risk when you were driving. You get hit by somebody else. There is responsibility. There is 100% responsibility. It must be completely assessed. 100% of the responsibility falls on them if they hit you.
All right, I'm sorry, but when we're talking about like ethics,
responsibility.
When we're talking about ethics,
different categories.
But when we're talking about ethics, responsibility is what we use, right? It's not like this thing. It's what we use to assign like
the
moral culpability.
Accountability. Yes, and in the culpability instance for victims of crimes, 100% of responsibility falls on the perpetrator. They still consented to being there. They still accepted the risk, but responsibility falls on the perpetrator.
Wait, but you literally just contradicted yourself because 5 minutes. Because wait. Because like literally like a minute ago, you said if you drive down the road and you get hit by another car, you literally your exact words were you are partially responsible for getting hit by that car by the end. But no, but that you literally just you're literally disagreeing with yourself in real time. You literally just said that the other person, the perpetrator, is 100% responsible. Like you 100%. You literally
99 and 1.
You literally contradicted yourself in one sentence. Dude.
99 and 1. If you wanna be semantic, then it's 99 and 1. You're still responsible, but it's a minuscule level of responsibility, which is effectively 0. You are still responsible. Yes.
Well, okay. If the responsibility is effectively 0, what's the point of holding someone responsible in any capacity?
Yeah.
Wait, what's the point? What's the point
of the level of responsibility for risk?
And also, can I just say, by your logic, isn't like every human being that's ever had something bad happen to them is then partially responsible?
Yes.
That's ridiculous.
To some minuscule mathematical extent, yes.
Well, this definition of responsibility has like no bearing on how we act in the real world. This is not like. Even by your own definition, we say, oh, well, it's negligible. But by saying it's negligible because, like, we hold the perpetrator responsible, when it comes to, like, events that involve the actions of two people, like, this definition of responsibility just doesn't work. And you've literally said so yourself.
It's very contrived.
Yeah, it is. But there is still some level of responsibility. Is there some level of responsibility? Yes.
Yeah, okay,
is it so meaningless that it's effectively non-existent? Yes.
Yeah,
but it is still a distinct difference between responsibility, consent, and acceptance.
It cannot be meaningless and have a significance at the same time.
Because it can still exist, and it still does
No,
exist.
no, 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 no. Listen to the words I'm saying. Okay, if one thing cannot be significant and meaningless at the same time, and you just say that where? Maybe
No.
I misheard you.
I said there is a significant difference between accepting risk, consenting to the things that you have accepted, and
Yes.
responsibility.
Okay.
Does every party that is actively involved in any situation share responsibility to some extent? Yes. By simply being there, you are partially responsible. That partial can be so fucking sliver minute that it's pretty much insignificant.
So what's the
But are
purpose
you
of
still
so
responsible? Theoretically, yes.
So give me one real world example of why that 1.01 minuscule insignificant percent, why in one case where that like matters, like ever in the world.
Car accidents happens all the time. Car accidents.
But how does that matter?
Okay, so what we're trying to
someone
say
crushes you,
Hang on.
you are to blame.
Partially to blame, yes. And
okay,
then
no,
here's
what-
no, hang on. Let me finish.
No,
Here's
no,
why.
wait. You've been talking for like 10 minutes. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what we're trying to say is that we don't usually say that every party is responsible because the distinction is meaningless. Because if you're saying that, you would be saying, I don't know, like a child playing in the streets and somebody walks up to the child and shoots him in the head. You would need to be comfortable saying, oh, that child was responsible for getting killed.
The parents are partially responsible for letting
No,
the kid be out alone.
I
by
understand.
themselves.
But your definition would be that you would be comfortable saying the child was partially responsible for getting killed. And
Yes, they walk up to a stranger.
I understand. No, they didn't walk up to a stranger. They were just existing in the park.
I have a question. I have a question for you.
No, wait. Let me finish
Okay,
this
go ahead.
example. Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is, well, logically, it might be because they were there. Just because they were there, the action was able to happen. We don't say, or with the understanding of responsibility, we never say that because it's so sliver or so minute, like you said.
Like maybe in some like meta fucking like god level deterministic view of the world, you can say that, oh, like this person is somewhat like the cause of this action was that you were in this location from like some specific. But when we say like moral responsibility, it has nothing to do with like you standing in some location and getting murdered.
But then that's carving out the responsibility. That's taking literally 100% of responsibility and saying X percentage is moral based, X percentage is logic based, and X percent is meta based.
But no, that's not how that works though. Like
that's what you just did. You just carved out the different types of responsibility.
All right, real quick.
No. What I literally did. Hold on. Okay.
When I start talking, y'all gotta stop. All right, we're gonna let everybody give some closing statements on this one, and then we'll move on to a different topic.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, Ricky, if you were here for this, do you wanna give a take on this?
I honestly have no idea what's going on.
All right, what about you,
Good.
Flex? Do you want to go?
The only thing I gotta say is, just because you do an action doesn't mean that you consent to all these side effects. So that's the only thing I gotta say.
All right, Top Dolphin.
I mean, I think it's pretty like reasonable. I literally it demonstrated in real time that he didn't agree with his own statements. Like, I mean, it's pretty clear that like when like someone who's responsible for an action does not just because you can like consent to an action that has risk doesn't mean that like another person committing another action that's like separate from like you're consenting to the risk means that you're like partially responsible for that, and that's just like absurd.
All right, Tiger.
Yeah, so there's certain things that there's certain steps that somebody can take to minimize the risk, but they also have to consent to the possibility of that whatever outcome happening.
All right, Sebs.
I feel like, yes, people accept that risks exist, but they don't consent to the fact that those actions will happen to them. Like, I can exist, and I know that there is a possibility that a bullet can hit me in the head out of nowhere, but that doesn't mean that I want it or that I consent to someone shooting me out of nowhere. So, yeah.
Okay. KO Dave.
And it's not my responsibility.
So, yeah. If we're talking about consent in the sense of like giving permission, I don't know if there's much meaning in the idea of giving permission to risk. Accepting that the risk is real and still putting yourself in a situation that
There you go.
that exposes you to that risk. If you want to call that consenting to risk, then fine, we'll call it that. In which case, my answer would be yes, you can consent to risk. And if we're not calling consent that, if we're calling it about the giving explicit permission to something, then I don't know if there's much meaning to giving explicit permission to the existence of risk. Risk is there whether or not you permit it. So yeah, and then when it comes to responsibility, that's just it's downstream, right? Like risk is the possibility of something happening. The actual action has to happen before there can be any responsibility assigned. And then of course you're talking about, like, do you assign moral responsibility to something? Do you assign like physical deterministic causation, which could be considered a kind of responsibility? It can get convoluted really quickly, so I'll just leave it at that.
All right, Cadmus.
Yeah, I think there might have been a misunderstanding at first what the topic covered, because I don't know why the topic immediately went to the discussion of rape, but I feel like as we sort of hash things out, the majority has come to like this agreement. Like every action that you take has a risk to it. You are aware of that. That does not mean that you consent it happening to you. Consent, as I see it and as it's colloquially understood, is people giving permission to one another for certain actions to take place.
All right. Do you have a mic, Cadmus?
I do. Is it very bad right now?
I'm not sure that you're actually on your mic. You may need to switch your input.
Okay.
You might be on a webcam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It sounds like
that
he's
happens
talking
to
at
me all
his
the
mic.
time.
Yeah.
Okay. I will see if I can change that. One moment.
All right. Gabe?
Sure. Just finishing or like taking into account what Top Dolphin and Cadmus said. I think there's like a very clear distinction about accepting risk or being exposed to risk and consenting to something. I think that as we understand consent is we give permission to another party to do an action upon us, or something like that. I don't think that's why I think the distinction between accepting something that something might happen and consenting to something happening is really different. It's really important. Yeah. So when you take an action, you don't consent to the possible side effects. You just accept that they exist, but you're not consenting to them. To respond to the question that you asked originally.
Okay. And then following on.
So this is pretty simple for me. Like I said, there's 4 distinctive disciplines here. It's acceptance, consent, permission, and responsibility in that order. You can accept something. You have to accept that something exists. You can accept it or deny it. And that's the simple reality. And then if you accept or deny it, you consent to it because you consented to accepting it or you consented to denying it. But you made a decision, so you consented. You came to a consensus. Your self-consensus. You consented. And then after that, you have permission. Just because I don't want something to happen does not mean I did not consent to something happening. I did not give permission for it to happen to me. Like, for instance, if I step into a battle royale, I consented to and accepted the risk that I could be hit. Did I give permission to hit me? No, I did not. The responsibility of that falls on the person who hit me. I am also responsible for consenting to accepting that risk in the first place. Now, that responsibility will fall predominantly and majoritarily on the person that hit me. But am I also to blame for being in or near the fight in the first place? Yes. If I wasn't in the proximity of the fight, I never would have gotten hit in the face. And I never consented to accepting the risk to do that in the first place. So yes, I do bear a small portion of responsibility. That is typically the part that gets whitewashed between responsibility, permission, and consent, and society has been blended into one that we just call consent. And that is not an accurate assessment because you can consent to something and not want it to happen to you. I don't want to get hit in the face if I randomly go in to help a friend at a battle royale. I just want to get them out. I never gave permission to get hit, And if I do get hit, the person that hit me accepts responsibility, the overwhelming majority of it. But the police will still hold me accountable, responsible for being involved in the fight at all. However, I will not receive punitive punishment for that because I did not throw a punch. However, there is still shared responsibility, just like within school fights. Both the person who threw the punch and the person who got hit both get in trouble.
This is just
However,
not how anybody has ever used this word ever.
Dramatically more
Like
punishment
ever
than the person
on the
who
history
got
of the
hit.
planet. I'm sorry.
All
this
right.
dude-
The next topic was suggested in the Discord, I believe by Cadmus. Cadmus, do you have your mic fixed yet? Do you want to do a test real quick, or is he frozen?
I believe he
might be
is frozen.
Yeah.
Okay.
You might want to choose a different topic if he's frozen.
Crap.
What's the topic?
Well,
And you
I
can
didn't.
you hear me?
This is the
Oh,
one. Yeah. Wait.
Wait, what?
Your
Yeah,
your webcam's
bro.
frozen, Cadmus.
Yeah, turn your
Well, we
webcam
can
off.
hear you.
Yeah, turn your
Okay,
webcam
cool.
off and then back on.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go.
That's
Oh,
much
there
better.
we go.
Hello.
Much
Hey,
better.
okay, cool.
Sweet. Okay. All right. So, in our current system, is there any reason to vote third party? Are you wasting your vote, or do you think that there is like some sort of what's the word? Like integrity in voting with your heart, or do you think you literally just threw your vote in the garbage, or do you think you're helping build a third party over time? I guess we'll do opening and closing statements on each one. That'll make things a little bit easier. So this time we will start with Ricky the Great and go across the middle first.
Well, in my opinion, voting third parties is in a first past the post system. You're just throwing your vote away. Like that's just how it works out. I'm not sure how much more there is to add to that.
Okay. Sebs?
Voting third party is literally a waste of your vote. I mean, inherently, if we want to talk about democracy, there is no democracy going on in the US. And the two-party system is just a bullshit excuse of democracy, honestly. So, yeah.
All right. Tiger?
Yeah. So I guess I would say I mean, I don't think that it's a waste of a vote necessarily. If that's the party you align with, and you think that you are.
Thank you for the
contributing to
bits. Oh, whoops. Sorry.
if you think that you're contributing something to that party and you're growing it over time and you're making an impact, then yeah, by all means, vote for, I don't know, the Whig Party.
All right. Top Dolphin?
Do I think it's a waste of your vote? Not. I mean, wasting is like a really weird way to think of it. I think by voting third party, by voting a third party, you're necessarily endorsing the party that wins. Now, voting third party can be a good thing. Let's say if you know like a Democrat's going to win, but you want to vote Green Party because you believe you want to like bolster their numbers, like that could be a very good thing if you agree that the Democrats are probably good. But if you vote for a third party, let's say you're like, and like the other side or something that you don't agree with wins, you've necessarily endorsed it, especially in a system where not that many people vote.
All right. Flex?
Yeah, so if we're talking about like voting for the president, like yeah, it's a waste of a vote. That's fucking stupid. If you're talking about like any local elections or anything outside of that, there may be some use to it. But as it stands right now with the system that's what you're talking about, like the spoiler effect, it's not useful at all.
And then crap. The Ratatouille? Are they there?
They're muted.
All right. We'll come back to them. KO Dave?
Hi. So I guess we're talking about. Are we talking about the U.S. in particular? Because Canada is a very different political reality. If we're talking about the U.S., then honestly, for the most part, a third party vote is just a throw out, right? And I do think that it makes sense to say that it endorses whoever ends up winning. But if you if you know who's going to win because like statistics are rock solid or something like that, then endorsing a third candidate might make sense. So I don't remember who said that, but I think I agree with that. In Canada, it's very different. I'm Canadian, by the way. Hi. In Canada, it's very different. We have like a multi-party system. We don't have like two-party hegemony here.
Nope. Nobody cares about Canada. We're talking about
nobody
America.
cares. Okay, we're talking about America.
Based.
Fair enough.
Merc.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Cadmus.
Yeah. Man, I feel really sorry for third-party voters, man. They get so much shit from both sides. It's so undeserved. They're like the whipping boys of both main parties, and it's just not right.
There's
I
the
think
libertarian.
Yes, there's the libertarian, absolutely. I do believe there's validity in third-party voting. Like Flex said, mostly when it comes to local elections. And sadly, people ignore local elections for the most part. They focus on the presidency. They think that's the be-all, end-all, and they think that's where the most political change will happen. That is not the case. I think seeing decades of stagnation proves that's not the case, that the president is the be-all, end-all when it comes to elections. Most of political change will happen on the local level, and not enough people pay attention to it. I think if more people actually paid attention to it, looked into the politicians, they would find more third-party candidates who actually align with their beliefs.
Okay, Gabe.
Yeah. So I like again, like Dolphin said, I wouldn't exactly call it a waste. Maybe it's really ineffective. Also, depending on the election, right? Because the presidential election is going to have a much bigger pool of voters. So, like, third parties are going to have a significant smaller presence than, let's say, local elections or something. So maybe third party could work in a mayoral race where you actually mobilize people and ramp up to something different from Democrats and Republicans. But as far as the election goes, I do think it's highly ineffective, and I think that you are, by inaction, endorsing the person that ends up winning, because you know that third party, at least in a pool so big as the presidential election goes, you know that it's going to have a really small effect. So you're, by inaction, endorsing the person that wins. So yeah.
All right, and then Fallen Hour.
So I'm actually a really big fan of the third party system, because you have to have a third party before you can have a fifth, sixth, and seventh. And so the issue with that is, it's as the saying goes, it's a noble hill to die on, but you still die. And that's the unfortunate reality at the global level of the US. And then obviously other countries have recognized that a third party, they had to go through the same thing, where they voted for the third party, it built up popularity over time, and inevitably became an established party, and then the fourth, and then the fifth, and then I think India has like 200. So, like, obviously it can come into a massive balloon, into a full evolved democracy. With that being said, you have to start somewhere. And as I think it was Cadmus said, and he's absolutely right, most change happens at the local level. And there are far more third party individuals getting elected as third party at the local level, even up to, I think, Congress and Senate a few times. And so it's absolutely possible for that, as the party becomes more and more popular, to become that. But more importantly, casting your vote for the third party actually is incredibly effective. It may not get your politician elected, but it shoots a salvo across the bay. So when the politicians of either party see those rounds start to be fired off to the point where, 4, 5, 6, 7% of the election went to this third party, what that is telling them is they are increasingly both losing ground. And if they don't change soon, there will be a permanent change in power. And they do not want that. So it does have an actual effect. A couple of years ago, if I remember correctly, there was like an all-time high vote of Libertarian Party. And it almost got to the point to where they had enough votes to actually become a legally recognized third party, because they garnered so many votes of the popular vote. And that's something you have to take into as recognition and significance. Once the party starts to get that many votes and they're gaining that much ground, that means, as Cadmus said, at the local level, they are having an astronomical impact. Because you have to remember, even 3% of 338 million people is still 9 million people. You reached a lot of voices. You were heard, you were felt, and 9 million votes is definitely enough to catch most politicians' attention, even presidents. And so that is definitely a significant thing. I would not discount the third party ever. That's a very dangerous ideology for a sitting politician to ever discount the third party. I would never recommend that. But is it something of significance today? At the political level for the presidency, it's enough to cause some problems for sure. Absolutely. It could cost you an election. Is it enough to actually define the election? In some cases, it could be, especially some of these closer elections that were like 1% away. A 3% differential by having the support of the third party would have got you the election in those. And in some cases, it might even have actually caused that, like with the Trump and Hillary Clinton. Maybe the third party was the defining 3%. But those are things that you have to take into consideration when looking at the third party. It's just 3% is what people say, but just 3% is, look at the wealthy. They're just 3%. 3% matters, and it matters a lot.
All right, Tiger, it seemed like you had the most disagreement with everybody else. Is there anybody you want to challenge right off the bat?
Yeah, so I agree that like on the I guess gender standing that it has to start somewhere. And I guess if I could like I guess refine my position, if you feel like the two parties that are currently that have the most power, if the two parties don't align with you, and it's a race to which, or it's in a race, and you don't want to like support either one, and you feel like it's a losing battle, then you can, and if you feel like the greener party like fits you the best, then I'm all for even. Excuse me.
Was that it?
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. We'll open it up from there.
Yeah. I took a little bit of issue with.
So I kind of like a little bit.
Fuck! I was muted. God damn it.
Where like he made a good point about like the razor thin margins of U.S. presidential elections recently, right? Where if it's not a matter of like can the third party win, because right now no it can't, but if they can chip away at the monuments that are the Democrat and Republican Party, then if they can chip away at those margins, then at some point it would be foolish to ignore them. I don't know the statistics, so I couldn't say if we're at that point already, but yeah, I kind of like that point that Falinauer made.
I think the go ahead.
I was gonna say, in general, what third parties do is third parties are usually like slightly more extreme or slightly more aligned with one of the major parties, and they take votes away from it. That's why generally the best way to like get third party support or get third party ideas is just to run in the majority party that most closely aligns with you, and then to like push like efforts in that majority party's favor until the point where the minority party becomes small enough that a third party can overtake them, or third party ideas can overtake them. It's never effective to vote for like some small ass third party, and in fact you're just like, I think it was Fallenauer who said it shoots a salvo across the way at the other party. No, the other party is like saying thank you because you just like gave them votes, especially in local elections. Now there are some districts where like third parties I have seen a lot of success and even been elected, but for the most part in like local elections, turnout is the number one decider. care. Whoever can like bring the most people out. Sometimes these decisions in local places are decided by like razor thin margins, and I mean like dozens of people, like 24. I think like one of my local elections was like decided by like 24
20,
people
30.
or something. And if a third party takes 30, like 31, 32 votes, those are people who actually showed up, who decided, hey, we're not gonna vote for the party that we more agree with, and we're gonna just like endorse the winner, who ends up being the other party in some cases.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, though. Turnout for local elections tends to be low anyway, right?
Yeah, it's abysmal.
Typically.
So if people actually looked more into local elections and turnout rose in that, I think people would, and if people actually paid attention to politics, I genuinely think they would find candidates who are not part of mainstream parties that they would align themselves with ideologically far more.
I mean, that's just not true.
Places like New Zealand, I think they've had a couple of. I think it's New Zealand, for instance. They had a third-party president. Like, that's pretty damn good.
I think part of the problem is like giving an incentive to people to feel comfortable with voting for that, and I think somebody else mentioned it. Maybe changing up the voting system a little bit. I've heard a lot about like ranked choice voting and how that can help alleviate some people's hesitation towards voting for third party.
Yeah, Flex. I do agree with you on that. And I forget who brought this up, but third parties normally just kind of get folded into the two main parties when you have like on a national level, for instance, like Bernie was folded into the Democratic candidacy race, and someone else mentioned the Hillary Trump, and there could have been a third party there. Like the only third party that could possibly have run and given them issues would have been Bernie, but Bernie was afraid of being like Ralph Nader, which would be like a spoiler candidate.
I think
there's no way a third party candidate is going to get the most powerful position in the whole fucking world. Like that's just not going to happen.
I know. It's what happened. He would get a big enough portion of the Democratic vote that he would be ostracized like Ralph Nader was.
I think that's the issue. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'd also say that he never did run, so sadly not. But I'd say the guy that I most agreed with, if he ever did run, I mean, obviously I live in the UK, I can't vote for any candidates, but fucking Jesse Ventura any day, like if I was an American citizen, I would have voted for Jesse Ventura, and he's third party, and people thought that if he did run, he'd get enough percentage to where a third party could get onto debate.
Make on the base, yeah. And if they make it, when they make it out of the base, that's when it's going to be the game changer. And that's what a lot of people have to remember is the reason why when you go to the voting booth, you're typically in the booth for less than 2 minutes. And in those 2 minutes, you've selected all of your candidates simply by clicking a bubble. Very, very rarely are there write-ins. And so the issue why third party doesn't garner a ton of votes is because everybody that's voting for them has to write them in. And that's the issue here, is once they're on the ballot and you can click their bubble, it's going to dramatically change those numbers that people are seeing and have continued to see for a long time. That's going to change.
Except in the places where third parties do make it on the ballots, they get crushed. Yeah. That's just not true.
Yeah, they still get crushed. Yeah, they're still
making on the ballot and like you're saying that making on the ballot in like a national election is gonna like make them make a difference. It's not. It's like
it is. You see.
I'm pretty sure there have been third. I'm like pretty sure there have been 30.
People vote down ballot. Like that's what happens.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there have literally been third-party candidates on presidential ballots, and they just get crushed.
To say that doesn't make a difference. How long has it been since a third-party candidate was on the ballot?
I mean, they're on ballots all. Wait, if we're just talking about presidential elections, then
hang on. You mean? Are you talking on the essential elections where they're actually listed on the ballot as a name and not something that you just click other and then write their name in? To the best of my knowledge, never. I've never seen a third party on my ballots.
And you're saying if it gets to that point, it's going to make a difference. It's going to make a huge difference. You have a third option on the ballot.
Right. Would you want to have that option? Sorry, I actually had to take a call to let somebody in. And I was, so wouldn't you like to have that option, for instance, if you don't like either party, you have that option to vote for a different party, or you can vote for the party that you like or you dislike the least?
Yeah, real quick, we're gonna go to Ratatouille real quick.
Ratatouille.
Oh.
Cut him off. Go ahead.
Yeah, basically the way I see it I'm kind of middle because like if we're going off of like how the system is now, it would kind of like by definition in a way be a waste of a vote because your vote isn't going with the general population into a candidate, but in a way it's not really a waste of your vote by a moral standpoint regarding that you're like you personally are not wasting your vote because some people might feel that wasting their vote would be voting for one of those candidates because they wouldn't really fully align with them. So why would they feel like they should put their vote that they don't really align with to that person? Because them that's wasting the vote because that's not going to like a good candidate that they feel like their vote would align with.
Yeah, we're gonna go to Gabe.
Yeah,
we aren't
so,
necessarily.
Hold on.
Sorry.
We're gonna go to Gabe.
Okay, so yeah, I think that if you're trying to build a movement, let's say, or start a party that's different from what we already have, I think that there's multiple ways, or you have a diversity of strategies that you can implement to build that movement. Voting is only one of those tools that you have available. So if you use your vote voting for a third party, and let's say there's I don't know in a local election or even like a state election, and the incumbent is someone that you dislike or that's more popular than the party that you dislike the least, you're unintentionally shooting yourself in the foot because you need to use that tool to create an environment that would make it more likely for your movement or your party to flourish, right? So yeah, I think that it's an effective use of that tool. You can do more things or be incredibly more effective by using a diversity of tactics. And I think that using that tool in that way, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, and even though it feels good, you're actually moving your party or your movement. You're making it take a small step backwards, and you don't actually vote for the movement you're growing until you have a significant number, right? And I don't think like 2 or 3% is a significant enough number for you to get your party in power or your movement in power.
I agree with Gabe. And more to the point, Ratatouille, I think it's not necessarily a moralistic question like at hand here. The question is it a waste of a vote? Is your vote counting towards something that would be towards your own personal political ends, which in a first past the post, it's just not. It just doesn't work out that way.
Wait, but you're assuming that the moral and political.
Hold on. We're gonna let Ricky finish. We'll go to Ratatouille, and then we'll go to Top Dolphin.
You just end up voting for the lesser of two evils most of the time. No, that's the end of it.
Okay. I kind of see the point you're making. Especially with that last statement that more or less he could be voting for the lesser of two evils, but I mean, it's kind of hard for me to decide, cause like I see like the statistics that y'all saying like matter about if it's 1 or 2 or whatever, but like it the way I'm thinking about it is that say. Is that both candidates could not align, not only not fully align, but like just like one belief from each candidate could not benefit or like appeal to an individual. I think that's not really a waste of a vote. That's not really a waste of a vote. If it's not really a real vote. For that candidate.
All right, we'll go to Top Dolphin.
If you need me to go on anymore.
Yeah,
we'll go to Top Dolphin and then Ked.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to say is I want to dispel this idea that third-party candidates aren't on the ballot. I had to make sure because like I'm really sick right now and like my brain's fucked up. But Joe Jorgensen and Howie Hawkins were literally on the 2020 ballot. If you voted, depending on what state you live, they were on your ballot. They were not in the ballot on every state, but they were on the ballot in enough states that they could have won the election, like had they won like a lot of votes. So the fact that these people aren't on ballots is just not true. The idea that it's like the not a moral decision and then saying it's the lesser of two evils, you're like qualifying that it's a moral decision when you say that. And it's not even like the lesser of two evils when you're voting for a third party, because you're just like basically abstaining. And in general, third party voters like more aligned with one party. So for example, in the United States system, Green Party voters are generally aligned with Democrats, and like Libertarian voters generally align more with Republicans. And when you take your vote and you give it to a third party, you're endorsing the party that wins, and if the party that wins is the other side, like that's partially on you, because like if you're a libertarian and you could have had Republicans, you could have like garnered support with Republicans who have ideas that and will implement policy that are more closely aligned with your beliefs. Or if you're a Green Partier and you vote for a Green Party instead of a Democrat who would have more closely aligned with your beliefs, you're essentially throwing your valid decisions on policy out the door.
But wouldn't that be accepting, consenting, and then giving permission for something you don't want to happen?
I'm not.
Let's not go there.
But in all seriousness, though, again, I would say that
Hold on,
your vote
we're gonna
still-
go to
Oh.
Cadmus.
Oh, okay, you're gonna go to Cadmus instead. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so a few things. So I'm a lefty libertarian, just to get that out of the record. I know people think libertarian; they usually think right wing these days. Unfortunately, most libertarian parties are right wing, and therefore I don't really have many third party options. I usually do tend to have to vote for the lesser of two evils. And it annoys me that people think that voting for the lesser of the two evils is like this somehow respectable and commendable thing. Like, look at the state that America is in right now. You have one party which is kind of flirting with fascism right now, if not openly, just like suggesting, hey, maybe we should try some fascism. And you have another party which is blocking the left from repairing the damage that the right-wing party is doing. And I'm supposed to feel good voting for the party that's like, well, let's not go too far left. No, I have insane amount of respect for people that vote third party, because you know what? At least they're standing on they're standing on their morals, they're standing on their principles, and they're trying to build an option.
Well, I'm sorry, you're not standing.
They might be standing on their morals and whatever, but they're
it's kind of an
like they're actively detracting from the people you're trying to protect. You're by saying that, you're saying that it's okay to sacrifice some people as long as you're standing on your morals, which I disagree with.
That's right. They're standing on their morals. They're just standing on minority rights that get trampled down at the end of the day as a consequence of that.
Every single third-party voter is standing on the rights of minorities. Every single one. What about
when you make a poor decision and you vote third party in a race where your fucking candidate can't even get on the ballot in half the states, then obviously it's not a good choice, and you should choose the better choice in that situation, which would be the party that can actually get on all 50 states.
And if the better choice is some milk, if the better choice is some milk toast Democrat, or even that like a blue dog Democrat.
Okay, so let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. If we have a choice, and there's a choice where there's going to be 1,000 concentration camps, and there's another choice that there's going to be only 100 concentration camps, and those are only two viable choices, I'm going to vote for the one that has less concentration camps. Even though I want no concentration.
Being able to vote for
something
no
a little bit more
concentration
like
camp.
realistic here. Like, yeah, you might be standing on your morals by voting third party, but like, here's the thing: we in America, we do have a right wing that is flirting with fascism, and the Dems aren't doing a whole lot to fix it. But the thing is, like, it's much better to vote for the party who can have power, and then allowing the pro-fascist party to take power.
Most people
I agree on that sentiment. I'm just saying that people just brush off these third-party voters as if they're like a hindrance or a spoiler, and it's like, well, someone needs to do something to try and establish.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do something about
it, that's what I said. What I said before is that voting is only a tool. You can do a lot of things besides voting, but voting as a tool, you use it to advance your interests, not as your whole thing, right? If you're like a lefty or a lefty libertarian, you try to use different strategies and different tools to build your movement. But if you're wasting effectively wasting this tool, you're only hurting yourself.
Wait, Cadmus, I have a question. Cadmus, wait,
I
disagree.
Wait, Cadmus, can I ask you a question?
I mean, that's your question.
All right, so my question is, what is your end by voting for a third party when you do it? If you don't like the two majority parties, like what's your final goal when you vote third party? Like what purpose do you have?
My purpose, the purpose that I have when I do vote third party, there's multiple purposes for that. Usually I only vote third party when it comes to local elections, because I know that's where they're most likely to win. When it comes to like general elections that we have in the UK, I'll vote Labour, because fucking fuck the Tories. My ultimate end goal is to try and get that third party to a point where they're at least in the discussion. I think that if third party voters just follow your example of it's a waste, just vote for the lesser two evils.
Nothing changes.
Nothing will change. These parties will
Nothing
never
will change anyways.
Yeah.
Wait, so
Hang on. I've waited for a while now.
Go ahead.
All right, so here's the issue: is again, it's
uncharacteristically silent.
Yeah, so this is probably gonna blow y'all away, but I've had the right to vote for a long time. I have voted one time. I do not, as a matter of principle, vote for the lesser of two evils. I don't settle for the candidate that I believe in. I have voted for one person the entire time I have ever had the ability to vote, and that was for Donald J. Trump. And that was because
That explains that
specifically,
wood panel background.
hang on, specifically because I looked at the policies that he had based on what he said and his history of what he's done in the past. And then I looked at what the other candidates said and had done and their history of actions, not what they said, what they have done. And then I predicated my decision based off of what they have done. Donald J. Trump took a handful of millions and turned it into billions of dollars. That's good for the economy, good for jobs. That's what happened. Hang on. I've watched Bernie Sanders spend 40 plus years in multiple offices and has had very few actions definitively versus other politicians collectively in terms of number of sheer raw votes and things that they actually
because that's how electoralism works in the US.
No.
The reason why Bernie never got anything.
I didn't finish. When you look at the number of votes that they had the ability to actually voice their points and affect change, when you look at the history of people like Bernie versus other politicians, there's a dramatic difference. When you look at people like Biden, there's a dramatic difference in the other politicians who have had similar or slightly less years in office, but dramatically more actions and votes they have taken. That is significant to me because that tells me they are openly, actively, and overtly doing more to make change.
This is kind of irrelevant to the discussion, anyways.
Going back to the question, we're not. Going back to the
you mentioned third parties literally 0 times. It is not relevant at all to the discussion. You're giving some fancy anecdote. You're giving some fancy anecdote.
We're gonna go.
It's not a fancy anecdote. It's 40 years of history. How is that an anecdote? Are you out of your fucking mind?
Bro, I'm stucking. All right,
Adam, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's a fancy anecdote because you didn't explain the points of history of anything. You just said I voted this party because this is the one man that happened. And if you look at the history, these guys did nothing. You went into 0 detail on the things that they didn't do. And in contrast, we're talking about third parties here, and you're talking about the 2 majority parties. You've mentioned third parties exactly 0 times.
No. That's just factually false. I said that one took millions and turned it into billions, and then one person had the ability to vote for over 40 years.
Okay, so
hold on. I've got to ask him this question. I've got to ask him this question because this is to do with third party. Well, no, look, you have your right to vote. I totally support your right to vote. I don't agree with you voting for Trump, but hey, whatever. You exercise your right to vote, buddy. That's fine. If Donald Trump if he did run independent, would you have still voted for him?
Yes. And here's why. Here's why. I don't vote for people based on what party they are with. I vote for them based on their history.
You voted once.
Yeah,
Yeah, you voted for
exactly.
You know,
I
if
vote
if
for
he was
them based
saying
on their
if
history of
he was
actions, and
saying
if
if
you're
Donald
not going to
Trump
do
ran for
anything,
party, he would
I
vote.
That was a
If
qualifying
Hey, wait,
and
no,
the
wait.
answer to the
hang
question.
This is
on. I
Yo, what's
can
up, Dark?
make
How's it
people-
going, Doug?
Voted literally.
These guys are fucking insane.
Yes, and here's why.
This
Because
fallen eye
all
dude
of
has
the
no idea what
people
the fuck he's
that
talking
I
about.
did
It's
not vote
insane.
for, the fact that I did not vote was itself a statement, an expression of my freedom of speech that I don't
Yeah.
believe in the candidates that you're bringing me, and because you won't let me have a vote to say I don't want either of them, give me two more, I didn't
Yeah.
vote at all because
Wait.
I will not endorse somebody I don't believe in.
I'm sorry, but it would have been more effective to go out to the polls and like write your own name in or write Big Dick McGee in than sit at home and do absolutely nothing. You aren't saying, oh, you didn't give me a candidate to vote in. You're saying I'm too fucking lazy to walk out of my house and write something on a goddamn piece of paper. That's what you're saying.
So you want me? So instead of making an action and a statement, you want me to go write something vulgar on a piece of paper?
I want you to write something on a piece of paper.
To the third parties. Like, I don't care if you voted for Trump. We can talk about it in another topic. But the issue of not voting, you are endorsing the other party that wins, right? And it's really nice and it feels really good to say, oh, I haven't endorsed anyone that I don't fully support. But you're sacrificing people that are being negatively affected by policies that these people enact or don't enact.
No,
It's
it's
not.
Hang on. No. This is a fallacy that I've listened to for quite a while now. If I don't give you my vote on the left or the right, I don't take one vote away from one side or the other. I'm not giving either of them my vote because I don't believe in you, so you have 0, and I don't believe in you, so you have
the vote from both sides. Then
I'm taking the
you're
vote
not even
from
helping
both
yourself.
sides. I'm
Can I
not
get a
helping.
point of clarification, please? Because I just got here and I don't want to just start like blurting out shit and everyone's like that wasn't the question, idiot. So what's the question exactly?
The question is.
Let Tom
give it.
The original question was asking within the two-party system. We're asking whether or not a third-party vote is actually a good vote or a useful vote.
Okay. Well, if enough people were to go ahead and vote for the third party, it no longer is two major parties versus like some minor. Eventually, enough like traction gets brought on to this additional party so that it does become a major party. Like,
my point as well.
I don't think it's fair to have a system in which you basically have to sit there and be like, I fucking hate both of these. But like, I think voting is a form of action, but it shouldn't be a limp dick. Like, I fucking hate doing this action. Like, I should be allowed to go outside and vote for somebody and then be happy about, hey, that person's gonna win or not win, but I really wanted that person. Like, I voted for the first time in 2016 because I was allowed to, and I did a write-in. I didn't want to vote for Hillary, so I still wrote Bernie on the ballot. I know he wasn't going to win, but I still believe.
I mean, to be honest, in the United States, the third-party system is like such a small problem in the way. If you want your like opinions and thoughts to be represented, that's why we have primaries, and they work pretty damn effectively because we have people as far left as like AOC, and we have people far right as like the turtle-looking dude. Okay, and if you want.
Nancy Pelosi and AOC should even be in the same party. In any other country, that wouldn't be the same party.
So cool. If you want them not to be in the same party, wait. If you
people have to go ahead and make
like you said, they have to collaborate. And like in India, a perfect example is India. In India, I think there's over 200 registered parties. And collectively, they all have to get along. And collectively, they all collaborate. And
that doesn't happen in the U.S.
Yeah, it does not happen in the U.S. Exactly.
And in places like that have third party systems, sometimes massively unpopular parties get like representative in the government, like actual policies passed.
Too. So like for example, like I live in Canada, we have Bloc Québécois, which are the people that want to separate. They have 2 seats. Good fucking luck. Have fun with your 2 seats, numbnut. Like you can't do anything. So like at least people still get to go ahead and.
Hang on.
There's semi-representation.
Hang on. I just learned something completely new right there. Sorry, I'm so sorry, but I find that fascinating. You said separate, like separate as in leave Canada, and then
Like, Quebec has tried to separate like twice, but like
Quebec separatism
and become Quebec, the country.
The country of Quebec. Okay.
Smack dab in the middle of Canada. Yeah.
But like, there's a whole party dedicated to it because at times they do go ahead and get more seats. But at the end of the day, like democracy can still exists even if they do get all the seats. They've had referendums in the past in which they've had the opportunity to go ahead and leave, and more people inside a province are anti them leaving than pro them leaving, so it doesn't pass. So you could still go ahead and have these places where like unpopular ideas get to have seats. Like, good luck. What are you gonna do with it? If the majority of people truly believe in your thing, then go ahead, have your fucking thing. Clearly it's popular, but a lot of these unpopular ideas are not popular. They just happen to have like a little constitutional district with like 700,000 people, or like I guess in the case of Canada, maybe like 60,000 people, and then they
Ricky's
say,
okay.
Yeah, okay, this area likes it, and the one right next to you says that's stupid as shit. Like, we're not gonna actually go ahead and let you.
It's cool, Jack. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
You get to have your seats, so you feel
checking me out on YouTube and
but
shit.
at the same time, like, you don't have any power. It lets people have their fun. Let them have their fun as long as
unless there's like split votes, in which case then you're the one with the power.
Like my whole point still stands. So like to the people who are doing like the whole basically lesser of two evils argument, it's basically what's being made in opposition to this. I think Gabe said, I think it was Gabe that said, what you can do instead of voting is try and build your movement. But isn't voting for the third party part of trying to build that movement?
I think it's a part of, but I think it's a really small part, and I think you can have more influence.
It's a big part of it. These parties cannot continue to exist without.
Wait, let me try to explain to you. No. Wait. Okay. So you can build a movement without having a party, right? We agree. Those are two distinct things. Yes,
you can't have a movement without a collective.
I'm not talking about a collective. I'm talking about a party.
Yeah, that's not ridiculous. To have people together, a collective, to have a party.
Movement, but it's not a political party.
I'm talking about a registered party.
Wait, you can build a movement without having.
There's still a party.
You can build a.
That's why Black Lives Matter is a movement, and we recognize this as a movement.
Wait. You can build a movement without having like a third party. But if you if your movement wants to get policy change in like the United States or in government, that movement necessarily needs seats and votes in some sort of congressional body.
Hang on. Are y'all serious? Hang on.
No, wait, stop.
Like, lobbying is a thing for a reason.
My question to you is, you've been saying that third-party voting is waste, Adam. If you admit that in order to get policy change, you need third-party, why is the voting?
What? I didn't say you need third party. I said if you want your opinions, if you want like opinions, you need seats in elections. And having third party seats in elections.
Let me walk you down the path. Cadmus. Let me walk you down this path. All right. You can get seats for your movement without having necessarily your third party elected if you convince enough people in your locale of your ideas, right? Because if your electorate has certain ideas that they don't feel are being represented, they're going to go ahead and complain to their representative, and they're not going to vote for him, or they're going to they have a certain amount of power to exert over the representative. So this is a way you can
generate pressure,
exert pressure for your ideas to be platformed, and this is more effective, like pressuring a candidate or representative of one of the two main parties than trying to build an entire party that nobody really votes for, right?
I think it's not necessarily that destructive if you end up having like an equal amount of leftist and rightist parties. Like, let's say if like the Soc Dems were to break off, and like the QAnoners were to break off, then it wouldn't be that much of a problem. But it's like obviously if it's just three parties, it like fractures it. Sure, it'll die out, and that means it didn't need to be a party. Like, it didn't have ideas that were that different, and like they were able to compromise, and the people were okay with what they already have. But I think in the case of progressives, like so many of us don't like what we have, and all we do is bitch and complain about the people that we have. So might as well have a proper party that actually represents our interests.
Well, I'm sorry, but if you want to be a progressive, it's way more politically effective to go win elections and go win primaries, or go beat Republicans in seats and get them out of office, and then have the discussion between the Democratic Party on like what like different parts of our government are gonna do. It's like way less. It's way more effective. I mean, the problem with BLM is like their inability to mobilize under like specific policy. Wait.
So the election was over, they never got a word back.
Wait, we might have had like massive amounts of protests and stuff. BLM might have had massive amounts of support and been talked to all that, but BLM was never rallied behind any like specific policy implementations, and that's why it's extremely ineffective.
Yeah,
that's why Republicans are massively. But not everybody who is protesting for BLM even knows of them. Like to talk about what demands are you talking about? Like ACAB as demands? Because ACAB isn't a demand. It's like screaming at the top of your lungs like a 4-year-old. You have to have specific policies that you want to implement.
There was a formal list of demands drafted and sent to both parties, and Biden received it. They acknowledged that he received it, and then never met with them after the fact.
Met with who? They don't have a central representative government.
Yes, they did. They have. Yes, they do. They have.
They don't have a leader.
Yes, they do. And they yes, there is. There is a legally established institution that's a registered nonprofit. They have a chain of command.
You can have a fucking nonprofit. I can make a nonprofit that's libertarian. I can make a nonprofit that's libertarians for something, but that doesn't mean I'm the leader of the libertarian.
And then they set up localized chapters with established leadership processes, which the localized chapter.
It doesn't matter anyways because this is a straw man. Because we have one. I said we need to get seats in elections and have specific policy things, and literally we haven't had a primary election to get BLM seats on the fucking ballot since Biden. So how the fuck are we supposed to primary the lesser, like the Democrats that we don't like out if we literally don't have a primary election to do so yet? What the fuck are you talking about?
You don't have it.
You're just ignoring what I said. This is literally an r/Rouge post happening in real time, dog. Like,
no, it's not. See, you're strawmanning. You are actually strawmanning.
Wait, no, you literally said your exact words were.
You literally just took the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Wait,
you have all 3 offices you could force through.
Wait, are you saying that BLM and the Democratic Party are the exact same thing?
You think we can get through any bill? That's absolutely ludicrous if you think that everybody in the Democratic Party agrees and that it's just a monolith of ideas.
So you're saying that
we
none
can,
of them support
we,
BLM?
you know
Are
we
you
can
saying that none of them
bill.
support BLM?
I need to stop you.
Wait, can I please respond? He's literally like.
I need to call you out for potential bad faith because
bad faith. What?
Yes, let me explain. If you let me explain, I'll tell you. Okay, so what they said is the Democratic Party is not a monolith. And what you asked is, you said, so you mean that none of the Democrats supports BLM? How do you get that from those 2 statements? Those are 2 differently distinct statements.
No, they're not. It's the exact same thing.
Wait,
please. I'm going to walk you logically through this. Okay?
Let me respond or don't ask me questions.
Just because
Let me respond or don't ask me questions. Pick one.
What? You already responded.
He's explaining. Hold on, Faulkner. Hold on. He's explaining what it is he's saying.
Yeah, but he didn't let me complete my response.
Okay,
he literally heard
this man's literally filibustering in real time.
I'm not. If you're gonna ask me a question, I'm gonna.
Yeah, I understand. Complete your response. You're being
okay.
No. As I was saying, if you are the part of his question, the initial statement came from Top Dolphin, and then she added something. Katarina added. Is it Katarina? Sorry, added something on top of that. I responded to Top Dolphin, and then I responded to Katarina.
Could you remind me what those statements were?
Yes. So Top Dolphin's statement is that we have to get people primaried, we have to get people in office, and then we can do things. Yes. That happened with BLM. That is why BLM came out.
You're. This is why you're just wrong. And let me wait.
No, that is exactly. We can roll the VOD, but this is kind of my point. You're not letting me finish. That is what you said, and I responded with them. What happened with BLM? And then BLM never heard back from any of the people that they helped get elected. Senators,
but you're not responding.
Wait, you're not.
I'm working my way towards it. Let me finish.
Can I please respond?
They helped Congress get elected, House people get elected, Senate people get elected, President get elected. You have the House, the Senate, Congress, and there's a very strong leniency on the courts. You've got almost all 4 major bodies of government, and nothing has happened with it. To answer her question. To answer her question.
Yes.
She says it's not a monolith. If it's not a monolith, why does 100% of the Democratic Party in almost 100% unanimousness support BLM? If it's not a monolithic party,
where are you
show me a Democrat. support BLM.
I'm gonna need some
Can I
receipts
please
on
respond?
that, please.
Can I please respond?
Hold
Yeah,
on.
go ahead. Go ahead.
There's
What do you-
different types of
What do you mean by
supporting.
what do you mean by
That
represent?
doesn't support
There's,
BLM.
What do you
there's
mean by
different types of supporting. They're supporting as in, I
lip
agree
service.
that black people shouldn't be killed. That's one type of supporting. There's some people that believe that you should defund the police, and that's one type of thing. There's some people that believe that riots are justified, and that's a different type of thing. But nobody actually unanimously fucking aligners are making. I have
I didn't
aligners
say
and
they support every ideology.
okay.
No,
But-
no,
I said
wait,
that
wait.
there's nobody
That's the
doesn't
thing.
support
You're
BLM.
not saying anything. That's
No,
why
I
you can
am.
say no. Wait. Let me explain. You're not saying any. Okay, so acknowledging the fact that the Democratic Party is not a monolith, and then you countering so 100% of them don't support BLM is literally saying that it's a monolith.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
and y'all are
understand
saying that it is.
Agree.
Wait,
No, no,
wait.
we don't.
Thing.
Oh my
That
God.
doesn't
First
mean
of all,
they're a monolith.
Wait,
And
that-
there are also like differences and
Yes.
variations between
So they're not
Democrats on how
monolithic if
much
they all agree on
Wait,
something.
wait. There's a
support
massive.
Realize
Wait,
mono means
wait.
one.
There's a massive
they are
India.
not
thing.
monolithic,
The Dems
they
are
Okay, hold
built
on, hold on. We got too many
coalitions.
people dying. We're talking.
wait,
we're
let's-
gonna.
Can I please respond, Tom?
I'll finish
All
it.
dying, Tom.
Too
I'll
many
finish it
people
and
are
Adam
dying.
can talk.
Hold on. We're gonna go to closing statements on this one. We'll let everybody get their last word on it. We'll start with Fallen Hour, and then we'll go across the top.
All right. So this is a very simple concept here.
They're only-
If you are supporting a party and you're voting for a party, you support that party. If you are running with this group, collectively saying that you support this group, you support this group. If everyone in your group supports that group, it is monolithic in the ideology that you support the group. Do you agree with everything that that group says? No, you don't have to. But if all of you support them, all of you support them. It's monolithic in
No,
ideology
that's
because
not
you are
what
one.
monolithic
Now,
means.
my closing statement,
Sorry,
not yours.
My bad.
If
Yeah, please
it's
don't
one
talk to it during
collective
closing
mindset,
statement.
you are called a hive mind. If it's multiple people in a hive mind, it's still a hive mind, still seen as one collective. If everyone says BLM is good, there could be parts of it that are bad. Yes, it is still monolithic in ideology. That being said, there is a distinctive difference here with what happens versus what is advocated for. Just because you are a movement, you also are a party. Because if you are collectively advocating, raising funds, taking money, pushing, yes, legally you are registered as a party. You have to lawfully.
Yeah, if you're
The BLM, if you're making contributions to politicians, you must be registered. The BLM is not a movement, it is a party. And it is registered, and they have made hundreds of millions of dollars in legally registered donations. It is a party, not a movement. If you have more than one person collectively operating together, you have a collective. It is a body. If you are doing things and actually conducting actions and taking tasks and making collective movements towards a specific ideology, you are a movement. But if you are registered, you are a party. There are 3 different distinctive differences there. They must be separated, just like with the previous conversation. There are 4. They must be separated because the significance is legally impactful and it has substantial meaning and difference. I yield back the remainder of my time.
All right, Gabe, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is like Fallen Hour mentioned, this is really reminiscent of the previous conversation we had. So if you changed the definition of party to mean what you want it to mean, of course it's going to mean that, right? This is like the Jordan Peterson conversation had with Slavoj Žižek, where Jordan Peterson stretched the definition of God so far that, okay, everything can be like a God, or everything can rely on God. So that's what it reminds me of. To go back to the point of the conversation, I think you have many different tools to exert or to get the ideology or the things you want implemented into your country. I think the voting is only a tool. I think we should use that tool to get people that are more likely to agree with our ideas into power. I think that voting for a third party, if they're like really small, which is the case in the United States, is a waste of a vote. You can do many other things to empower your movement and to exert pressure. Voting is just a tool. Don't stick with the thought that voting is your only tool, because we have many. That's my intent.
All right, Kazmik. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the screen. Kazmik.
To go back to the topic of third-party voting. Like I said, I think third-party voters get the short end of the stick. I'm one of those third-party voters. I think third-party voters deserve a little bit more fact, at least, because they're at least fighting for that third option for people to have. Until we get some sort of serious electoral reform like ranked choice voting, third-party voters are always going to be fighting an uphill battle. But that doesn't mean that they shouldn't do it. It doesn't mean it's a waste of their vote. People want to keep voting for the lesser two evils? That's fine. Go ahead, do that. But we have a long history of stagnation and things not getting done regardless of whether or not we vote for those lesser of two evils. I would rather vote for a third party knowing that they are not going to win and at least get a chance of them being in the discussion in the future than vote for someone that's just not going to get anything done, not going to make any progress.
All right. Is it Katarana or Katarana?
No one says it right, so say as long as you put all the right letters in, it's fine.
I would like to know how to say it right.
Yeah, me too. It matters to me.
Actually, Katarana, but no one says it right.
Yeah, I'm not gonna
Sorry,
say it
can you
like
say that again?
Yeah.
Can I get that one more time?
It's actually like it's literally Katara na, but no one says
Katarana?
it. Yeah, yeah. But
Katarana.
Oh, okay.
You didn't say it with the
Katarana.
accent.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you have to
That's
say
fascinating.
I ruined my own name.
Yeah.
What's up?
Okay. If you only do Fort Hall as that accent, you cannot say anything else.
Okay. Then I'll make sure. Anyone that says it without the rolling of the R's, canceled.
Yeah.
Cool. So third parties are important. I hate the Dems, and it would be nice if I didn't have to vote for them. I also hate the Libs, and that's why we vote NDP in Canada. Unfortunately, I have multiple citizenships, so I get to hate multiple elections. But I just want to quickly push back on the one thing that Fallenor said, where as long as you have a centralized, et cetera, that makes it a party. No. As somebody that owns and runs a non-for-profit, and like there's multiple people in the non-for-profit, and we have things that we try to do and social change we try to enact. Unless you want to go ahead and make a STEM equality party, my organization is not a political party, so I would want you to implore and look a little bit at what it makes for things to be a political party. But outside of that, third parties for the win. I would like it if we could go ahead and have them have more strength. I don't like the whole idea that it's a throw-out vote, and that you're just like harming, the party that you think is preferential. It shouldn't be hurting the party that's preferential. It should be me actually voting for policies I'm passionate about, rather than me having to look at like, what's Trump doing? What's Biden doing? Oh, well, I hate 60% of Trump's platform, but I hate 55% of Biden's. Fuck it. I guess I'm voting for Biden. Like, it's just, yeah, I would prefer that I actually get to vote for someone and say, yay, that was a good vote. I'm very happy today. So, third parties.
All right. Sorry, we do have to go a little bit quicker. KO Dave, go ahead.
Third parties are largely a waste unless your intention with your vote is to damage the leading two parties by chipping away at their margins.
All right, Ricky.
Can you give me just one moment?
Yeah, Sebs.
Voting third party is a waste of your vote. I don't know if as much as a waste of your vote as voting at all in the bipartisanship of the US. But yeah, and also you don't need a fucking party to get things done. The labor movement, it's a perfect example of how things got done without a party, and actually legislations and orders and bills and laws passed. So yeah, you don't need a party to get things done.
All right, Tiger.
Yeah, I would like to say voting, like diehard voting, Democrat or Republican, no matter what, is kind of really corrosive for democracy. I think that if there's two tyrants, then you shouldn't be like, oh, guess I'm going to vote for the tyrant that is less tyrant-y than the other. And the third party is a way to build upon
All right, Top Dolphin.
Oh, Oh God, I have so much to cover and so little time to do it. First off, I want to say that the idea that like BLM is a party, when they're like a registered nonprofit and a registered party, these are things that you have to register as, and they have not registered as a party. That's just wrong.
All right, time's up.
Wow.
Just kidding. Just kidding.
The idea that like BLM has universal support is also dumb, because like you can agree in like an idea of something like climate change, but disagree in the implementation, which is how you get policy passed. The idea that like BLM should have like gotten like stuff done because Biden's been in office for 4 months is really dumb. BLM people who put Democrats in office hadn't even had the opportunity to try to primary those Democrats out of office with more progressive and more candidates that agree with them, because there hasn't even been an election cycle. So you're just wrong on that. And I generally think third party is necessarily voting for like the winner of the election. Like you're throwing your vote away, and if your goal is to get the third party candidate elected, you're throwing your vote away. And you're like hurting the people that are most closely aligned with you. We have such a diversity of opinion represented in politics in the U.S. That it's volunteer, basically the party process. And if you would want to get rid of something like third parties, like instead of voting third parties, something like much more like impactful would be something like requiring all people to vote or instituting ranked choice voting. I think I covered everything.
All right, Flex.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with a lot of what Topped Off is saying. Just kind of go off some other things here. Is that I think that third party is just gonna be useless in America with the way that's the structure that's in place right now. We're dominated by a two-party system. Their influence over our laws, voting system, and structures in place right now, it doesn't allow for a third party to succeed, specifically with the amount of money and influence that they have. We saw in this last election how the Dems bullied out the Green
Holy
Party
fuck, that was a
in a lot of
mouthful.
different states. They weren't able to even be on ballots in a lot of different places. Refs will do the same thing to libertarians. This is going to happen in a lot of different places, and those two parties are going to ensure that they're going to be the only two viable choices. We need to make a lot of changes in America in order for a third party and more to succeed. So that's all.
All right, Ratatouille.
I would just like to say that since I've been listening, I've kind of seen both points, and I thought that in a way I kind of see what y'all are saying. And I think I'm on. I agree more so now that that since the two parties are more so like categorized between left or right or Democrat and Republican. I'd probably say like since I've been thinking it'd be more easier to just vote for like the one you align with, because it's more easier to talk to and change the mind. No, well, not really change the mind, but get somebody that's on your side to agree with you, rather than somebody that's on the opposite with you. Because if you're like, say you're white and you argue with a lefty about the issues that you think should be addressed, you have to get them to understand, and you have to get them like to acknowledge those issues. But rather than if a white is talking to a white, them two already have those issues in mind, more or less give and take. And so it'd be much more easier to just vote with the party you're aligned with, and then go from there.
All right, and then Ricky.
All right. First, I did really quickly. I wanted to address the thing that oh crap. Sorry, one second. Foolery?
Yeah. Yep.
Foolery said, the Dems aren't a monolith. The Dems are built on coalitions. Historically, LGBTQ rights, minorities, fiscal progressives are leftists, and the working class, i.e. unions and stuff. Though they've been kind of building more within the educated elitist middle class, if you wanted to call them that, which is why the Dems fight there's so much goddamn infighting and nothing gets done. Like, for instance, only 51% of Democrats strongly support the BLM movement, whereas 88% show some support. So there is a level of support there that is within the majority, but it's not full support. And the reason why the reps are can get, I guess, more things done is because they're in lockstep with one another. Generally because they hold the same interests, i.e. Tax breaks, deregulation, and kind of flirting with populism. Now for my closing statement on on voting. It's called Dervinger's Law. In putting that generally, populations usually fall on bell curve distributions, and it's it's natural. It happens. It's so a majority of people will sit in the middle of that distribution concerning their the issues that they believe in, and for just to kind of like call them like gray voters. So they might lean a little bit to the left, they might lean a little bit to the right, but they're not like really on the far ends of the spectrum, because like those are the populations on the far ends of the spectrum where you find those third parties. And in a first past the post system, like you can't have, even if you have somebody further over on the left end of the distribution that would rather have a social democrat, but they will vote for a Democrat in order to get most of the things that they want instead of nothing that they want. So until there's major election reform within the United States and we get rid of the first past the post system, with like ranked choice or some sort of electoral system, some other form of electoral system, like you're throwing your vote away if you vote third party.
All right. Yeah, just to throw this out there, I think that like the outcome is what matters, and if you're not voting within a party that actually has a chance for a win in the outcome, then you're just kind of throwing your vote away. Like it's pretty much as if it didn't count in the end. So, all right. For the last one, and we can after this. Normally, lots of people just stay and hang out for a while, so everybody can feel free to stay and hang out. Once we're done. For the last one, with the Chauvin trial coming to an end, we wanted to talk about justice. What is justice? Are we getting justice for the individual? Are we getting justice for somebody who's no longer alive? Are we getting justice to be consistent within society? Is it for everybody else? Is it for the Black community? Is it just this abstract idea that we just want to achieve? What is the justice actually for? We will start with, I guess, Tiger.
Am I unmuted? Okay. Yeah. I would say justice would be there was somebody wrong, and then there was a wrongdoer. And if the court proved that beyond a reasonable doubt that that person was wronged, then the wrongdoer needs to be punished under the implications of their actions. And so, yeah, it would.
Who the fuck knows what justice is?
Okay, Sebs.
That's such a big question. What is justice?
You want to hear some other answers first?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Ricky?
don't know how to answer that.
I'll go next.
We got Ricky up next.
Oh, okay.
Could you restate the question? Like, is it what is justice, and who is getting justice?
Yes. What is justice for?
What is justice for?
Yes.
Okay. I believe justice is to hold people accountable, especially people in power, and because like with power comes responsibility, and if you're in control of a situation and you abuse that power, you should be held to account. So I believe it's for society as a whole.
All right, KO Dave.
Oh boy. Justice. What is justice? This is a question that entire libraries have been written about. So in order to make a very long story very short, I have no freaking clue.
All right.
I'm not entirely finished. I don't know what it is, but I can pinpoint something that it isn't, and it isn't for the dead. the dead don't care because they're dead. So I don't really see a form of justice that could possibly matter to someone who's not with us anymore, you know? So I mean, like, that's the most extreme example, right? Like, obviously there can be justice for an individual if the individual survived whatever was done to them.
All right.
But yeah, that's I'd love to hear other people's take on the matter because I don't know what justice is.
All right, Ratatouille.
Hello.
Yep.
Can you unmute? Okay. So
We can hear you.
my thing's a little bit laggy, so it's still saying I'm muted, but I can talk. All right. So from a standpoint, the word justice per se, it appears in many of the U.S. most important documents, such as Declaration of Independence, Constitution, the Pledge of Allegiance. But like the speculation of what the word actually defines as is ranges from philosophers to theologians, yeah, and legislators. But the way I categorize it would be like in the term of fairness. So if something's fair to a certain group or a certain individual, it should therefore be applied and should be fair to another group or individual, or given justice in a way.
All right. Crap. I gotta pull this back up. Flex.
Yeah, so in response to like the specific case, I guess like this is a step towards justice. There's obviously a lot of work that needs to be done to change this country. We have like a terrible police system in place right now where they're basically like a subset of the military. They're getting like hand-me-downs from the military at this point. They're treating our citizens like shit, specifically minorities in this country. So I think this is a step, but it's not the end, and it doesn't encompass all of justice right now. But it is a step towards that, yeah.
All right. After Adam goes, we'll go up to crap, I already forgot. I'm just gonna go with Catarana. And then we'll go off the top to the left. I got a Catalana. Catalana.
Catarana. Is it Katadana?
Catalana.
Qatar, Rana.
So you know Katara from Avatar. You know Katana like the thing. Now split them in half.
Rana.
So
Qatar, Rana.
Katarana. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
think Qatar the country and then Rana.
So after Adam, we will go across the top. I got to step away for just a second, but I will still be listening on my phone. So I will be back before you guys get finished with your statements. All right, Adam, go ahead.
All right. First thing I want to say, is it Katadana? Am I like kind of close? Like I can't roll my eyes. It's like really bad.
Okay, Katara, the person, and then no.
Katara.
So Katara, no. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Katara. Anyways, basically, I think that justice is kind of like enforcing what is like right or just in the world, like in a moral sense, or I guess in a legal sense sometimes. And in terms of Jared Joven, he broke the law, he murdered a man, and murder is a law that is like it's a rule, and I think we all agree that murder is probably wrong. Therefore, being held accountable for said murder is some level of justice. Does that mean like everything's over and like the world is a completely just place and a right place? No, we have lots of different legislation, lots of different policy that still needs to be implemented. But it's nice to see that someone was like punished for their actions, or like held accountable, not necessarily punished.
Cool. Yeah, I think justice really just depends on the situation. I guess whatever community was the most affected by this is kind of who it ends up being for. So let's say if I'm doing petty theft and I'm going ahead and robbing debts, well, when convenience stores, they call them depanneurs where I am, but I'm robbing convenience stores. So I get arrested. Well, who's the justice for? Well, now like people that own convenience stores feel safe. They feel like that their place won't get robbed for now. So the justice is for them. Ted Bundy, his justice is for all like young girls, 18-year-old to 25-year-old women now feeling more safe. In the case of this, now it just feels like, hey, if somebody goes ahead and murders a black person, and the line of duty, there's actually somewhat of a chance that they will get arrested. So the justice is now for the community. So that's kind of the way I see justice. Whoever was the most affected by the event is going to be who the justice is for.
Hey, Tom, people saying stream died in chat.
Yes, his stream died.
Oh no.
Oh, rip me. I'll have to fix that.
Really?
Thanks.
Should we wait?
Oh, did Tom's stream die?
It'd probably be.
Hang on, guys. The stream froze.
Oh yeah, Tom's stream go rip.
F.
This is when
Everybody
we
F
all
in the
go,
chat.
like mask off and agree
F
that
for Falinor.
I didn't get to say it in the previous topic, by the way, but I wanted to say it in the previous topic. I'm all for none of the above option in elections as well.
Yeah. So while it's broken, I'm gonna take my totally based one. But
oh my god.
yeah, for me, justice doesn't exist. It's effectively seen as, and I guess figuratively generated and portrayed as Lady Liberty holding the scales, and they're tipped in favor of balance of one or the other. And justice is a lot like that. It's always going to be tipped or rigged in favor of someone over someone else. The hope is that it'll be as balanced as possible. Yeah, and justice, like I said, justice doesn't exist.
I do think it can exist.
And in regards to that, with the current situation, I feel like this event, I wouldn't even call it justice, but this event is a level of accountability, and it's effectively a weight added to the scales, tipping it back in favor of a more balanced approach for minorities and the Department of Justice. Because specifically, the department doesn't exist. It may be a physical building with employees and an institution that's registered, but they're far from it. When you look at the history that the institution has, they've done everything except for enforce justice. They've shown incredible bias for an incredibly prolonged periods of time. Very selective enforcement of the regulations, almost to the point to where they openly and blatantly brag about it.
I love that you're saying this, and yet you voted for Trump.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like you can vote for Trump and then not believe in some of the things that he does. But like I said, when it comes to actions, actions speak louder than words ever will. And Trump has got a really loud mouth, but he does do a lot of things that helps people. But I don't want to detract into that. But in regards to who this will actually help in terms of accountability, it'll be, like I said, the minorities, because the issues or the histories of minorities being mistreated in this country by law enforcement is significant, and it is real. On top of that, the other issue is that the Department of Justice has collectively and perpetually instituted a policy of non-enforcement of justice equally across the branches of both sides of the scale they're supposed to represent and be symbolic of. And that scale is both their own people that are with the Department of Justice, to include multiple law enforcement and correctional facilities, as well as federal agencies, and the civilians that they are supposed to protect and serve. And in many cases, they have let law enforcement officers, the previous DA that we were discussing, I think in a previous chat of mine, where she had 19 different chances to convict Chauvin of other crimes that he had committed. One was a video that I personally watched, as well as all the videos of the current case, where he openly was actively assaulting a 14-year-old long before he ever killed Floyd. And had he been prosecuted, he never would have had a chance to kill anybody, because he'd already been where he belongs, which was behind bars. And so justice failed in that sense. She worked for the Justice Department because she worked as a DA, and she openly advocated, overtly bragged about not enforcing prosecutions of police officers. And so Department of Justice is part of the problem. And so this is, like many people are calling it, a level of accountability, where it is starting to actually start to build the scales back to where they should be, which is balanced, or as close to it as it can get. Justice will never exist, because justice ensues and assumes impartiality, which will never exist. And that's why justice cannot exist. But the scales can be tipped very close to balanced. And that's all we can hope for as a society, is that we will have relatively balanced scales to where it's fair enough. And so where that fair enough is and where that sits, that remains to be determined, probably in perpetuity. But a balanced scale is preferred, and right now the Department of Justice just doesn't have that accountability, and that is part of the problem.
All right. Sebs, do you want to?
Yes, I think justice is taking people into accountability, but not just people, and also the systems involved. I don't believe in
I'm so tired,
punishment.
chat.
I believe in restorative justice and
The vaccine's fucking kicking my
regarding
ass.
the
I only got the first shot. I can't
Floyd's
wait to see what
murderer.
this. I don't want to see what the second shot's like.
I don't
It's gonna
think
be so bad.
that putting
I don't know how much longer I
one
can stay on
person
stream.
behind bars will do
I need to
anything
like set it
really,
right down.
because people were mentioning before that women will not be scared of men that are put in behind bars because they raped a person. They mentioned
Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy, and it's like, no, women will still have be scared of being raped because there's a whole system behind it, and it's a whole culture and society, and justice should be about changing those things and making people learn about it to change. And it's maybe a too big and too idealistic of opinion or whatever, but I do believe that justice is possible and that is actually justice, and not just punishing people, because at the end that doesn't really make anything happen.
Okay. Let's see. Does anybody want to go first or?
Well,
I think we
Yeah,
missed
Cat-
Cadmus and me. Yeah.
Yeah, me and Gabe didn't get to introductions.
Who? I'm sorry, I don't see.
Katniss and Gabe didn't go.
And Katniss.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Gabe, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and then apparently like mine got cut off halfway through, but it's fine.
Oh,
I think
yeah,
it's
that's
repeated.
right because of the. Okay, so yeah, we'll go from Gabe across to
Katarina.
Katarana.
Okay, go ahead, Gabe.
I'm trying to roll the.
So I think generally as a society we think that justice is like this general idea that people get what they deserve, right? Of course, since human interactions and society in general are incredibly complex, it's really hard to almost impossible to get full justice for someone or for a group of people. I believe that what the conviction of Chauvin today was a positive step. I think it was a necessary step. I think it's justice for the family, the loved ones of George Floyd, and as well as for the community that feels disenfranchised about minorities being mistreated by the Justice Department. Although I think that this is a necessary step, I don't think that actions should stop there. I think that if we want change to happen, or we want to change things, we have generally can separate things into two categories, right? So ways to alleviate the problem right now, and ways to or try to alleviate the problem, and ways to change the system so that this problem doesn't happen anymore. So it's like, I don't know, like a disease. You take medicine for the symptoms, but you also treat the disease itself so that it disappears from your body. So I think that if the disease is racial injustice or that sort of thing, we need these bandages or to treat these symptoms, like with this trial. But it shouldn't stop there, and we should also make strives to reform the Justice Department or the justice system to prevent these things from happening again. Because if we don't do the latter, if we don't try to reform the judicial system, we're effectively almost doing nothing, or we're just putting bandages and letting it peel off again and bleed again, and basically we're not making any progress. So I think the 8 can't wait side that BLM was pushing for, banning chokeholds and strangleholds and requiring de-escalation and that sort of thing, I think those were pretty good ideas. That's my statement.
Cadmus?
What is justice? Justice is the process basically of establishing guilt, innocence, and attempts to do that and fulfill that process to the best of its ability. So, in the example, someone who is innocent, if you've been convicted of a crime that you did not commit, and it has been proven that you are innocent, you have been served justice. Your name has been cleared. You are no longer considered a guilty person. If you are guilty of your crime, depending what it is, you are served a punishment for that crime. Unfortunately, the problem with justice is that it is easily corruptible, as most human systems are, and therefore justice is both a beautiful thing and a worrying thing at the same time, depending who is the people that are serving it. In regards to Derek Chauvin, it is about time that cops are held accountable for their actions, and I just hope that this isn't going to be a one and done thing, and people quickly forget this precedent that's been set.
And then Katabrana.
Yeah, so I'm not going to do the full spiel, but essentially justice is for whoever was affected by the crime. It doesn't necessarily need to be directly affected, such as in the case of George Floyd. It was the Black community as a whole that was affected by it. So the justice is for the Black community. It helps some people just feel more safe. As I said, Ted Bundy, young women across the West felt safer now that he was behind bars. So whoever, I guess, was feeling the most psychological stress as a result of the activities is who the justice is for. And I don't mean this on a one-to-one level. I mean community-wise, because I feel like justice, in a sense that we care about, is mostly for communities. Obviously, if someone just killed my brother, the justice would be for my brother. It can strictly be for my brother because it's not very many people that are affected by this type of thing. I would still want to make sure a person is arrested so they don't kill more people's brothers. But when it comes to something that's big on the social atmosphere, then it's for the communities affected.
All right. Is there anybody that disagrees with anything?
I kind of want to point out.
Yeah, I would disagree with I think Katarina.
Just say cat.
She
I know
said
you
just
guys are not
say
going to
it.
do
Jesus
it.
Christ,
Say
it ain't
cat.
that hard. Katarina, there you go.
Yeah, and because I would like to start off by saying depending on like the society, like for instance China, 99.9% conviction rate, trial of 1.2 million people, only 1,000 were not guilty. I mean, if you ask the officials there, I bet you find some really good answers saying that their justice system is superb. Yeah, and also it depends on the I guess the punishment for the crime, right? For instance,
Question: where is this an argument against my point?
Right. So the argument I would push back on would be you said probably going to quote you wrong, saying that the justice is for the community. I would argue that the justice is for the person that was wronged, and also the population of that country.
So my thing was that if it becomes a social movement, then it has been co-opted, and people care about it more than someone would on a like one-to-one level. In the case of this, white on black cop murder, it is something that the Black community as a whole has cared about. But that doesn't also negate the fact that it is for getting justice for the particular person. As I stated, let's say if someone just random killed my brother and it wasn't a social thing, just manslaughter or whatever. If someone just fucking killed my brother, why not? Let's just do it. Then the justice would be for him. But that it's also because no one would be particularly interested in just a one-off murder. So I still believe that it can have a personal effect on that person's immediate family, and people are still trying to get justice for that specific person. But specifically in the case of this recent trial, I don't think anybody really cares about how George Floyd's mom is feeling. Everybody was thinking about like, what does it mean to the Black community? That's why basically every single like Black networking group I'm a part of was like, he's been convicted. No one was like, and his mom's very happy today. It was like, yeah, it's a win for us. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. And my issue is justice is for all three parties. It's for the community, it's for the victim, and it's for the perpetrator. A lot of times people cite, just like what Katarana did, it's she cited it as justice for him. No, it's not justice for him. It's justice for everyone. Justice in the justice system exists to maintain peace and order in society, fair and impartial. And that means the community is always impacted. The individual is always impacted, both the perpetrator and those that were acted upon, the victim. And so, what a lot of people construe, or my personal opinion, misconstrue justice as is social retribution. It's, oh, well, my justice for my brother, or justice for my sister, or justice for me. No, it's justice involves everyone. It's fair and impartial, and judgment is passed on everyone in equal portion. And then the outcome is the result of said justice. And justice isn't always fair, which is why I said justice is more so of an impaired scale of accountability that's typically tipped in favor of one side over the other, and it shifts as the paradigm of society continues to change. And so it's for everybody. And I think what I feel I would like to see is that we actually stop saying fair and impartial and we start doing it. And I think that that's the biggest issue in society, is we try to use justice as our sword of retribution to smite someone we don't agree with, just because they did something we don't agree with. And I think that the issue is if we stop looking at it from an emotional perspective and we look at it from a legal perspective, we will start to see the systemic flaws in our system that create so many of the loopholes that allow people to subvert justice and tip the scales in their favor. And then we will actually start removing the things that are artificially stacking the scales in one direction or the other, and actually let the fuckers level off for a change.
I was like so with you like this entire time until you said that like justice is like a legal thing. And I mean, maybe we don't disagree. I do think that definitely that justice is something that should be implemented in a legal way. That's kind of the point of the legal system or the justice system. Something that really stuck out to me, and it actually came from what you said, Fallen Hour, is like justice is kind of like this moral idea to be strived for. Like we want like people to be held accountable for things that are morally right, so that, like Katarana said, like women aren't scared of being assaulted. And the idea is that, like, unlike what Tiger said, if like we keep men or women accountable who assault or break the rules, and if those rules are like right and just, then like people will fear the consequences, and or like learn not to do bad things, and that we will have a society that's better. If like the idea is that if we hold white cops accountable for killing young black men and women, that black men and women will stop getting killed, or will get killed much less, or in equal proportions. And I don't like the idea that like we tie justice to like our justice system legally completely, because a lot of times it is the justice system or it is the legal system that is broken, especially when it comes to like systematic racism. The problem with that is that the systems are not working, and then we go and we say, well, how do we want these systems to work? And to do that, you need to go to like a more broad, like philosophical like definition of justice, and then you put that onto the legal system. So I don't know if we completely disagree, but like I kind of take issue with that.
Agree.
I think we're in the same place, maybe.
And Top, this is where you're probably going to be taken, like, this is going to be a crazy take. But, so, when I said legal, I mean it from both sides of the aspect. So say, for instance, Chauvin got to walk from this. If he tripped and fell down the stairs, justice. I'm just saying. That's what I mean by legal.
Different. Yeah, you're right. That's more of like retributive
than the system, and that's what I'm saying. From a legal perspective, falling down the stairs isn't always legal.
So which topic?
I mean, falling down the stairs is legal.
I think he's implying that somebody get pushed down the stairs.
I mean,
it's
that's
not
if the
another
scale, and what I'm
thing.
saying, if the
it's the
scales
difference
are
between
tipped,
revenge and
Yeah,
He's
and
saying,
like
like,
that
through the justice
justice. How is that justice? Like other people dying and creating more
there's
suffering.
more than one type of justice. I'm just
Yeah,
saying
he's
it's
saying
not
through
always
the
a legal
justice
system, but it's always
is
a
a
legal
legal
system.
type of justice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I was
Yeah.
gonna pose this question actually, but I feel like that's pretty much answered it. I was gonna say, like, I don't know. Let's say you get robbed or something. A burglary happens. You go out, you seek the burglar yourself. You don't interact with the police. You do this yourself, and then I don't know. You beat the burglar down with a bat or you shoot him. Is that justice?
No, I don't think so. That's why I disagree because in general,
That's where the scales.
That's why I don't think that counts
I
as
actually have
justice.
a,
At
I have
that
a
point,
question
that's
for.
yeah.
I have a question for Top. So you said something that was kind of loaded. Like, correct me if I'm wrong. White cops targeting black people or black and brown people. Unless I just heard the brown part. What do you mean by that? Do you think that we should train just white cops, or should we just train all cops? And maybe there's a use of force problem and not a race problem.
Well, I actually talked about that on
Hold
my
on,
previous.
hold on. Who was the question for?
Tiger.
That was for Top.
Oh, for me? Oh no!
Who?
Oh, it was
Tom.
for me. Okay, I thought you said Tom. Okay, yeah.
Oh, they
I
said
said Tom too. I was like, wait, I haven't said anything.
No, I think specifically for like this very niche issue.
You know what you said,
The problem is generally that like it's not even that white cops are killing black African Americans. It's that white cops are killing black African Americans and not being held accountable for it. And this is happening at higher rates than it happens for other populations. So I am definitely all for like justice reform. Like, this is why we call it systematic racism, because these like affect black people more often, but it doesn't take like individual racist actors necessarily. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But we need to reform the system in a way that like affects all people, and this will like reforming the system also will like disproportionately help the minorities that are disproportionately like affected by the system in a negative way now. So like I don't think we should just train white cops, or we should train white and black cops, and we should train them to not kill white and black people. We should
So it's not strictly white people that tend to have a negative view of like how dangerous the situation is around black people. It's a general sentiment across like most people that they're just scared more of black people. So everyone should be trained.
What?
White
supremacy affects
Okay, wait.
everyone?
Yeah, to
I
answer.
know, right? Is the situation
answer-
like if
So to answer Tiger and Top's question there really quick, I talked
okay.
about this
No,
on a
wait, I
previous
think Tiger
panel.
wanted to do a follow up on Top.
Oh, did you want to do a follow up?
So,
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, and then you can get back to me later. Yeah. So, is it how do you like distinguish if the cop was had a like underlying like racist intent of using a little bit more force than what he should have? Is it just the situation of white cop does something to happens to be a black person, or is it like an actual like implicit thing that all white people have?
I mean, it's an implicit thing that all people have. There's like this really cool test developed by, I can't remember who made it. Maybe it's Harvard, or maybe the IAT that like assesses like biases among like the whole population, and even African American and other minority groups, while less so than white people, still have this like these negative associations with African Americans. Another thing is
that like they asked them, they had like a drawing, and the darker the drawing was, the more they thought the person was guilty with very little information.
No, this is a little different one, but it's like a similar thing. So what they do is they like track your reaction times when you're pairing necessarily in your brain pairing like white and black names with positive and negative words. And the idea is that if you associate like black people with negative words more easily than you show white people with negative words, or white people more positive with positive words and black people with positive words, then like you have a bias towards like that group of people.
Was there any criticism of that study published? 'Cause I'd be
The biggest criticism I've seen, well, it's like an on there. You can all like you type in like IAT Harvard. You can all take this test for like lots of different types of like biases, not just racial bias. And there are criticisms of it. The one I'm aware of most is there might be like a practice bias, and that like the way that the test like goes is like distributed might like the order in which like you do the task could like bias like how you practice certain things. But I don't think it's like that substantial, and I'm pretty sure they've like flipped things around and still get the same results.
Yeah,
It's pretty. It has a lot of evidence behind it.
Right, and so I think we should just let all white cops take this test, and if they can't pass it, then just not a cop.
Well, no. The idea is
that's more complicated than that.
To kind of bring this back around to the actual question and debate, like, this isn't about policing. This is about justice, right?
Right, but
I mean, there could be an argument to be had that even like jail in itself isn't a very good form of justice. It doesn't really do fuck all. But also like
it's a waste.
Yeah. Also, recidivism rates are like stupid high. So like clearly it's doing so well. But I mean, that's currently the system that America has decided to set up, a non-working one. So
well, it's not just
the only form of justice you can get. There's other countries that do prison and jailing and stuff in a lot more productive ways than just go sit there and fucking eat shit for the next 20 years. I'll see you.
Well, my thing is this is the whole point of the justice system is to have a reparative process, a procedural means to have in systematic form a reparative process. If all you're doing is effectively sticking someone in the equivalency of a storage unit for 25 years, how does that remediate what happened or occur? How does that repair? How does that restore? It's literally all it's doing is putting it on pause. That's the complete opposite. You're literally just deferring, and that's what the whole concept of containment is you're taking something, you're putting it in isolation or a sustainment. You're effectively putting it on pause, and they have to wait a period of time before they can re-enter society. But it doesn't actually do anything to repair. Like, if you want to punish someone because they walked out and I don't know, they said something racist and then hit someone African American in the face, might be a great idea. Make them go clean up their streets. Make them clean the streets of Baltimore for a few months. I think that would help. That would help clean up the streets, make it look nicer, give them a nicer area to live, and would force them into a form of subserviency to where they're actually cleaning up the shit off their streets. It might get them to respect them a little bit more. And it's reparative. It's actually restoring their community. It's helping to further them as a society, as a collective culture. It's positive, and it's you take something negative and you transform it into something positive, and that at the same time gives them exposure to that culture to hopefully they'll change their damn minds and their attitudes. Things like that I would love to see way more.
I mean, that's going to be kind of pointless if it's not like rehabilitative in some way. You know, like I kind of agree with you, but like if the prison system is not set up to a way where it's not rehabilitating these people and getting them in a place where they're introducing them back into a society that we accept, like how they're going to act and the way that they're going to exist with this society, then it's useless as well. It's not just like giving them like, hey, clean up the streets and then go on your way. Like if we don't provide them the means and the structure to be able to rehabilitate back into society, it is useless.
Yep.
I think Cadmus had his hand up. I don't know if he was going next or not.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
I suppose I just wanted to ask, like, I don't know what my opinion on it is, but like initially I had sort of a very set forward idea on justice, but just the discussion sort of showed me a little bit more areas of grey here on this. So just a general question, like where do we draw the line of like what is and isn't justice? Are we specifically saying that anything that happens through the legal system is classified as justice? Or like, say, for example, I don't know, vigilante.
They trip down the stairs. That's a form of justice to me.
I'm thinking more like people taking the law into their own hands. But yeah, like let's say,
they
for example,
trip down the stairs.
Let's say, Derek Chauvin trips down the stairs and dies. Has he faced justice?
Yeah, I guess.
I don't see how that's
really
justice.
I mean, I would say that it's probably
more-
not the best to go ahead and have people take things into their own hands because
That's just
even though it does,
vigilantism.
even outside of that, you know, sometimes the person is not convicted, and quite often like maybe the person just genuinely didn't need to be arrested. I don't really like the idea of just people doing things vigilante wise, because I think that just could potentially lead to a place in which, like, let's say if we
Perpetuates
had
more violence.
yeah, it just ends up being more violent. And like, aren't we supposed to go ahead and trust the system? Why do we have a justice system at all if people are just going to be like, oh, you didn't arrest them, fuck it, I'll do it myself, I'll kill him? Like,
We
I don't
agree that
know.
the line for justice the aim is to do it through the actual justice system, and that's what we're classifying as someone has had justice served.
I'm not saying that I believe that the justice system is currently serving justice in any way, shape, or form, but that's the system we had, and I think it's best to just go ahead and talk about making reformations to make it a better justice system, and like acting through that instead,
Some
rather
sort of
than
system is better
putting.
than no system.
Yeah, no, I like I said, I just wanted to sort of see what people classify it as.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, but
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
work
'cause me-
within the
yeah, 'cause-
prison
oh,
system a
sorry.
little bit. Oh, do you want to go first, or? Okay, I'll go. Okay, so I work in the justice system
I
a
was just
bit,
gonna say
and
real quick that
I think he's a couple seconds behind. Go ahead.
Oh,
She's dying over there.
How can Discord lag like that? That's
Bro,
really weird.
that's like a solid 4-6 second lag.
Yeah.
Wait, let him catch up.
Yeah,
right.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
But I was just gonna say real quick, if we want to use the analogy of somebody like tripping Chauvin, apparently, and he falls and gets hurt, is justice? Couldn't it be argued that the 100 riding or like doing all kinds of harm, wouldn't you argue that would be justice in their own way?
Okay,
this
so
is more so pointed to what's his face up.
Is I can go if he's done.
Yeah, so sorry, just I wanted to answer that.
Good.
Yeah, I think that
I was just kind of like making an example and then asking I forgot his name, but the dude that made the example of tripping whatever.
Folinar.
Folinar. Yeah, that's his name.
This dude's on a lag down. This is comedy, dude. Like, hold up, 1, 2, 3.
I think, like, for the most part, I know Connor has a different, but I think for the most part, after that clarifying question, I got my answer. Like, I think most people here define justice as what's taking place within the actual system that we currently have.
I disagree with that. I think that. So I would say that, like, most of the time, a lot of the times when it comes to more violent things, justice, we say that it should be like done through a system rather individually, because individuals are extremely biased, and it's really hard for an individual to get the right outcome, the moral outcome, or the just outcome out of these types of situations. So a really good example of this would be like, if, like, let's say Derek Chauvin got off, but let's say it was because he followed police policy to the letter, right? Let's say that everything he did was in the peer review of police policy. Well, from a justice system perspective, we wouldn't want to hold him accountable, because when it comes to police officers, we want them to follow the policy, and the idea is that we should go change the policy, not the man. However, that wasn't the case. However, like a really good example of justice happening, like, regardless of the justice system, is like if there are like poor and starving and hungry people on the face of the earth, and let's say that like Jeff Bezos and his infinite amounts of money decided to go feed all the homeless people. Well, that's probably not the way we would want it done. It would be better to do it through like the government. I would say that that's justice. Like, there's no really no wrongdoing that could or could not be done, and like having like private companies feed homeless people isn't like a bad precedent to set. Now, is it the ideal way? In my opinion, no, but like that's a way that justice could be taken out that wouldn't necessarily include the justice system.
Yeah,
well, and in regards to that,
it's still within the system.
It reminds me of two cases. One was a case where there were people that were feeding the homeless, and they actually got shut down by the police. Nobody wanted to do it, but they were enforcing food safety regulations. but nobody wants to shut them down. That's a failure of the justice system from a moral perspective. And on the opposite side of that, you've also got in the perspective of there was a case in Texas I remember reading about a few years ago where a gentleman went into his backyard and found a man actively sexually assaulting his daughter. And so naturally, Texas, he walked up to the man and he proceeded in a fit of rage to beat him to death. And he was found guilty according to the justice system because he did kill the man, but then he never got any sentencing. He got no time. And that was because it was deemed that, yes, he was found guilty, but nobody wanted to punish him for it. And so that's two different cases where someone did something wrong and it was found to be wrong, but morally correct. And then someone did something that was morally correct, but it was found to be wrong. And in both cases, it can be broken and in both directions, which is why I typically call it more of a scale than an actual system.
Here, real quick.
talking
Hold
about
on,
is the
hold on,
difference-
hold on,
oh.
hold on. We're gonna let Ravana. Is that it? We're gonna let her get in real quick.
Oh, Ricky can go. I'll go after him. I want to hear what he has to say. Thank you, though.
Okay. I gotta you gotta turn yourself way up. Like you're maybe like at like 30%. All right, go ahead.
So I think that what you're talking about is the difference between legality and what is just.
Yes.
It was illegal for him to have done that, but it was a just action when he caught the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's really where you have to kind of that's really where that kind of gray area is.
Yeah.
I think.
That's where you start playing with the scales a little bit. And sometimes that's okay.
It's more philosophy rather than...
I mean, I don't really agree with that. I would call that just, because like I would generally say that we don't want to beat people to death when they.
Well, no,
it might feel good. It might be that'd be like a retributionist form of justice, but I wouldn't call that justice.
Well, if you're seeing that as protecting someone, you can obviously go too far. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like intervening would be a just thing, but like.
But yeah,
Adam,
go ahead, Ray.
Adam, does it need to be good in order for it to be justice?
Yes. I mean, like necess in the word justice, like is the word just, which means kind of like morally right.
Just.
So like for something to be just, it would have to be morally right.
Yes. All right, Ray.
Yeah, I just specifically in that case of the guy sort of doing vigilante justice against the guy who he saw. I think I can't remember. Was it raping his daughter?
Yeah.
The reason for not punishing him has to do with your theory of punishment, right? There's no benefit to punishing him under different legal theories of punishment. Like he's not likely to commit this crime again, so you don't need to isolate him. It was heat of passion. You don't necessarily need to reform him. So it's not, it's not that what he did was just per se, because we don't want people running around playing judge, jury, and executioner, right? Although we might say in this case, yeah, that guy probably deserved to die. It has negative implications in other areas. So
correct.
Yeah. So because no, go ahead. Finish your thought, Ray. Oh, okay. So yeah, I generally agree because everybody has their own sense of justice. We try to, as a society, come together and try to work out something that we can all agree to a certain extent. Yeah, of course, because something is legal doesn't mean that something is morally right. And the reason we don't want vigilante justice is because, like somebody else mentioned before, people are extremely biased and in the heat of the moment they can do a lot of things, right? So yeah, I think that in that specific sample of the father killing the man sexually assaulting his daughter, it's justified, I guess, in that specific example, but we don't want to like make it into a law, because if we make a system where people that are accused of sexually assaulting other people, we can just beat them to death. Like the justice system isn't perfect. There's going to be a lot of innocent people caught in the crossfire, and we don't want innocent people beaten to death. It doesn't mean that I don't think there are crimes that I personally think deserve death. I just don't think that as a system we want to encourage that.
Wait, I think
don't want people being the people that decide how much is due force. You know, if it's morally, some could say it's morally wrong if I, like, my boyfriend or significant other cheats on me, but should I be able to go ahead and say, I think this is morally wrong, and I should be able to go ahead and act in any way I find fit, and if I feel like fucking nunchuck kick, like curb stomping this man, is it cool? Well, you know, it makes me really happy, but like, is it my place to go ahead and make those kind of decisions? No.
Would that be justice even?
Yeah, well, I know I'd feel really good at the moment. I'd feel real good. But like,
But you could
beyond
max
that,
out his credit cards.
Oh my
All
god.
right, real quick, we're
reading
gonna.
my mind.
I know that a couple people just got here. We are gonna go ahead and go to closing statements and kind of round this out. Anybody who wants to stay and hang out can feel free to, and we can keep having this conversation or any other. So I guess for the two who haven't spoken yet, like, we'll start from top left and go right, with clearest.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say. I'm still doing a lot of research and stuff on this. Looking at a Bureau of Justice statistics.
Oh no, I just want to get out of here. I need to lay down.
More into this. Obviously, I saw the trial verdict and stuff today, and I think that was good. I think pretty much any average viewer can tell that Chauvin was guilty, and I think that was borne out by the justice system. So it was a good thing. Yeah, that's about all I have to say. Yeah, go justice.
All right, critical Canadian.
All right, so from what I'm hearing, it feels like we're kind of talking about almost like two different sets of like justices. One is like being held accountable for what you did, and the other one is kind of getting what you deserve, right? In the case of like Top Dolphin using like Jeff Bezos going and feeding homeless people, it's getting what they deserve, right? They deserve food. So I kind of think maybe that's maybe why he would say like Jeff Bezos giving those people food is justice. In the case of like the man beating the guy to death for raping his daughter, you could look at that as like he was being held accountable, and some people would argue he probably got what he deserved, right? So when that man was charged, the justice system looked at that and went, well, we could either be punitive or we could be restorative, right? So nothing really to restore to the guy. He's not a violent guy. It was just that one act that set him off, right? Now the question is, do we want to punish him for that act? Well, from the sounds of it, they found him guilty but chose not to punish him, right? And that's kind of where the justice system kind of it's an interesting, it's a hard question. It really is. Sometimes it's a little bit of a matter of perspective of what you think justice is. So
all right, Faulkner.
Yeah, so like I said before, I openly believe that justice doesn't exist. I believe that it's more of a symbolic constitution of an impaired scale that's constantly being shifted as the paradigm of society changes, and those scales are raised or lowered one side or another in favor of one direction or another. I think that justice is an ever-changing philosophy and ideology, but I do openly acknowledge, and then I think everyone equally as society acknowledges, that it should be fair and impartial, and that is the hope and the guiding the guiding scales of the chain link of that incredibly tilted scale set that never seems to fully match out. I hope that one day we can have fair and impartial justice to the closest thing to reasonable limits that it can reach. I feel that the recent verdicts with Chauvin are well deserved. Maybe not necessarily these verdicts, but definitely verdicts.
tired.
He's had multiple complaints. He's
I'm so
deserved to go to
sorry.
jail for a long time. He's finally going to prison. People can argue one way or the other. The ultimate reality is that collectively the scales are being tipped back in the direction they should be, which is leveling off with the Department of Justice and minorities and communities collectively as a whole. For a long time, justice has not been served to a lot of people, especially a lot of law enforcement agents. Even law enforcement agents agree that law enforcement agents should be in jail in a lot of cases, and that just doesn't happen. And it does feel good from a military perspective to see that is starting to shift back in that direction, and that the bell has been rung, so to speak, and hopefully it will continue ringing, and we will continue to see bad cops go where they belong, and good officers start to be recognized for being good cops, and the bad cops being dealt with, so that the reputations of law enforcement and the symbol of justice that they represent will start to mean something more to society than what it currently does. And after that, I yield back the remainder of my time.
All right, Gabe.
Sure. I think whatever we consider to be justice, at least to some degree, was done with the Chauvin trial or the conviction. I technically I don't think like maybe in a metaphoric way George Floyd got justice, or at least to some part. But I think that justice was like Pauline mentioned before, is also to the community and to society in general, for us to keep buying into the like this social contract that we have with the state, that they hold a monopoly on violence, but they hold people accountable. I think that's really important, even if we technically can't give justice to George Floyd. And I also believe that justice shouldn't stop there. We should also strive to reform the system that allowed this to happen. I don't think that justice should only be answering to the immediate things that are happening and putting people in jail. It would be modifying and creating systems so that to prevent more of these things from happening. That's it.
All right, Cadmus.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah, okay. I started out probably with a bit more of a narrow-minded idea of what justice was before this discussion. It sort of opened up a lot of avenues for me to think about. One thing I will say, though, that I did say at the beginning that sort of I stick with in my mind, is that justice can be both beautiful and a worrisome thing depending on who is the one delivering it. There are many examples through history of leaders and of political parties who would deliver what they call justice and what we would call human rights violations. So it is important that societies maintain what their idea of justice is, and anytime anyone tries to corrupt that or turn it into something that serves more nefarious means, they need to stand up and make sure that justice, however flawed it may be, is maintained at the end of the day.
All right, Kat.
Yeah, I don't think there is really such thing as a justice within the U.S. judicial system. Just putting someone behind bars for a long amount of time doesn't really do fuck all for anyone, and very few people actually benefit in any way, shape, or form from that. But I guess also justice happens to be evolutionary. At some point, people with mental illness would be injustice and just put into wards. So I guess it's nice that we don't just lock up everybody. I wish that we would go ahead and continue the evolution and start working on more ways to go ahead and reduce recidivism, actually reintegrate people into society. Losing your right to vote and no longer being able to vote work in like 70% of companies is not justice for anybody. Ruining somebody's life over an event isn't justice. So is this justice? Well, within the confines that we have, but that doesn't mean that I'm happy with what we have. Oh, also, I have to go so I can finish some graduation paper stuff.
Okay, I appreciate you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Later.
Bye, Katarana. It's always a
Enjoy your
pleasure.
papers.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming.
See you
Good
around.
luck with your thesis.
Thank you.
KO Dave.
Hi. So in my opening statement, I said that I don't know what justice is. I've heard a lot of different takes on the matter, and I'm still confused. But I think that's okay, because this is one of those things that takes so much time and thought that I don't. And this might sound like a cop-out answer. I'm sorry, guys. I don't really want to put a certain definition on the idea.
You're Canadian, so we
I'm
don't hold it
Canadian.
against you.
Yeah, okay, good. Like Canadian justice is just, give people maple syrup, and
And
they'll be
mooses.
happy. Yeah.
What a
and mooses,
Canuck.
yes. No, in a slightly more seriously, if I could poke at it a bit, I'd say maybe you can think of it in a goal-oriented fashion where you're like, okay, so something bad happened, and we want to do our best to make sure it doesn't happen again, or to at least lessen the likelihood of it happening as much as possible. And the best way to achieve that, maybe you could call that justice. And then that opens a whole can of worms that I still have to think a lot about. So that's the best I can do right now.
All right, Ray.
Yeah, really quick, just touching back on the story of the guy who was found guilty but wasn't given a punishment or wasn't jailed after he killed the person. I think it's really dangerous to define what is just simply by the decision of a jury, or whether or not a jury decides to jail someone, because in the case of state or the People versus Do, a shopkeeper shot a 14-year-old girl and they found her guilty of murder, but the judge erased her sentence and she had house arrest for a year. And that resulted in, it was played a huge part actually in the riots following the Rodney King decision as well. So was justice served in that case? For that community, absolutely it wasn't. And I'm sorry, most of you guys don't know me aside from Ricky. I'm a law student. A lot of my definitions and ideas of justice come from a legal perspective, and I personally believe in restorative justice. So justice is served when an individual meaningfully repairs their relationship and helps the community that they damaged, and helps the individual that they damaged in that community repair from what they did, which is also justice for the individual who committed the crime. Did that happen in the case of Derek Chauvin? Meaningfully, no. The racist institution of policing was not on trial. It was just Derek Chauvin. So while there might have been individual justice served to George Floyd's family and the members of that community immediately, maybe on an individual level, but on a systemic level, there was no justice. There was no systemic or restorative justice. So that's my take.
I knew I'd like you the second I saw the cello.
All right, Ricky.
Okay, so just a couple of things. First, I feel as though like simplifying justice into just being a scale as kind of as iconography is a bit reductionist, because like something being just is much more complex and dynamic and requires context and nuance, which works within the framework of societies that they reside in. Just because there's a law of something doesn't mean that it's not, or laws can be unjust, and justice is separate from legality. As Cadmus said, the kings of old may have had laws that were atrocious, and we would see them as human rights violations, but they weren't necessarily justice. And in the case of Chauvin, I feel like Ravana said it way better than I could have.
All right, Sebs.
I think one thing is justice, and another thing is how the justice system works, at least currently. I think justice can exist or should exist, but that doesn't mean that it currently does. I agree with Ray that should be restorative, and I also agree with Fall in the sense of that each justice is a holistic thing. It involves the people who perpetuated the thing, who were impacted by it, and the whole community around it. and it should be focused on how to repair and make things better rather than just arbitrarily punish this person, because punishment will never lead to anything productive at the end of the day. So yeah. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, Tom. I didn't ask you permission for plugging this, but my friends at Feminist Critique right now are fundraising for the Bail Fund project, and if anyone here is able to donate, I will leave a
The
link.
National Bail Fund.
Yeah.
I already donate. It's an awesome one.
Yeah, it's a bail fund campaign. There's a Tiltify, but yeah. Sorry for plugging, but yeah.
All right, Tiger.
Yeah, so I would like to say the majority of cops are good, the vast majority of them, and also they do get a lot of complaints. That is a thing that happens in this industry of policing. Another thing, I just want to brush over this point real quick. George Floyd's family got paid $27 million before the trial was even started. So I mean, that's a good plus. Sometimes if you do $3 billion in damages, justice comes to you on a silver platter without the process of it happening. Another thing I just want to brush over just real quickly, and then you can go next. I'll mute myself. The vast majority of cops are good. They're not racist devils and knights in hoods that are chasing down black people or brown people and executing them on the street. That's complete fallacy. And the system isn't racist. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. The statistics, for those unaware, is 99.97% of cops are perceived as good and have good careers without complaints.
Right, and I mean, I have statistics from BJS from stopping of black and brown people. How you like to put it, not my words, yours. Yeah.
Rip, Tom's internet went out.
All right.
It was my turn to go. Wait, are you here, Tom?
Yeah, hold on.
I just want to go to sleep, dog. I kept getting moved over because people kept leaving, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm later."
I'm pulling it back up. My whole power just went out for like half a second, and then came right back on.
By the way, Critical Canadian, I saw you say something about qualified immunity in chat, and it was the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But we should talk about that at some point. Yeah. Qualified immunity is like a really good thing. Is what I believe.
So I would argue instead of like doing a qualified immunity, you would have like watchdog groups that would keep tabs on these like situations that police find themselves in, right? Because what you want to do is like limit the loopholes that people can use to like circumnavigate your justice system, right? If one of the things is qualified immunity that is stopping a lot of cops from being held accountable for certain things, you would want to try to change that to more of a fair and balanced.
Wait, but we can have
okay.
We get
that is more situational based than like case law based.
Surprisingly, it's more the unions.
Hold
on, let's not like divert the whole thing.
Yet. All right, we're gonna go to Tiger.
Wait. Oh, did Tiger not go?
Yeah, as soon as I told Tiger to go, we cut out. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just recap real quickly. The vast majority of cops are really good. They're good at their job. Cops, good or not, they get a lot of complaints that comes with the occupation of being a police officer. If you get arrested and you feel like, I mean, nobody really wants to admit that, they sold crack to somebody. George Floyd's family got paid $27 million before the implications of justice, so to speak, could be taken in America. I don't really think that's fair, but who am I to say? I'm not them. And also, the system is not systemically racist or systematically racist in that matter. And cops aren't hunting down black and brown people. I mean, what?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, and I mean, I figured that the conversation kind of drift that way, but yeah, there are racist people. There aren't a racist.
Okay, I would like it if you stayed after just a little bit because it sounds like you're horribly misdefining systemic racism. systemic racism probably has like there's probably more proof of systemic racism than like anything in the history of the world. So I if you just want to stay like for 2 seconds after, we could probably just give you a simple definition and clear that up. Top Dolphin, go ahead.
Yeah. First off, the idea that like
You're muted.
oh fuck me. Okay. Oh god. Tom hates me. He never wants to hear me. But
white man silencing black people.
yeah, dude. What the fuck, Tom? You can't do that. That's racist.
As he's giving a pedestal speech on systematic racism.
Yeah.
Pedestal
He's
speech,
demonstrating it
oh
for
my
us.
True.
goodness.
But yeah. First off, with what Tiger said, George Floyd's family getting $27 million in civil court is completely different than like finding guilty in criminal court. These are like two separate systems, and to say that like one should be necessitated on the other is like really stupid. But to go back, I really think that like justice is kind of this. I really like the idea that I got from Fallen Hour, that justice is like an ideal that we strive for, and to create a justice system that like does things fairly is probably one of the most just ways to do this. I really liked what is it, Ravana? I really like what Ravana said about restorative or rehabilitative justice, especially in the case of like the guy in Texas. Is like sometimes like it doesn't feel good that like someone might not, but there's not like if they're not likely to like do a crime again, there's no point in like rehabilitating them because like you can't. And also the idea, someone said something, I don't remember who said that, but someone said anyone average viewer could tell that like the George Floyd case was like open and shut and really easy. But a lot of times when it comes to cops, this is not the case. This is why we need third-party regulatory bodies, because we don't want to punish cops who follow the rules, qualified immunity. We want to punish cops who break the rules and change the rules that are bad that allow cops to hurt black and brown people. All right, I'm done.
There you go.
Flex.
Yeah, so God, it's been a while since I've even heard the question of what's something about justice. So I probably will have to agree with, and I wrote down critical Canada, even though I forgot what he said. 'Cause
No.
It's been 2 years since we first started these. I agree with what he says in Ravana. They made some really good points, but I'd like to just kind of add on that just it's not just like what other people are saying, individual punishment, but ensuring that these things don't happen again, and these definitions can change over time. But
I think
just
I
kind of
did
looking
well,
at who's
chat. I think
responsible,
that
how
was
can we
good.
prevent this from happening, and what we can do what we can do to prevent this from happening in the future. Or just like a couple of questions that I would look at as far as defining like justice and what that involves. So it's not just like punishing an individual person, but also ensuring that the system around it is going to make sure that it doesn't, at least try to ensure that they're going to do what they can to make sure it doesn't happen again. Also, majority of cops are not good. I don't know where that kid got that from, shit. And I don't know where Floyd's family getting paid has anything to do with justice. If anything, they deserve to get paid more. That's all I gotta say.
Oh my god, this dude. I like Big Guy. He's funny.
Wait, did KO Dave already go? He freaking turned off his camera so he could get a second go around. Freaking KO Dave.
No,
These
no, 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 no,
Canadians,
no.
man,
I'm
they
good.
never stop with the with the
I'm good. I'm
shenanigans.
just eating. I don't want to
Show
put
us what
myself on
you're
camera while I'm eating.
Come on, do it.
Weird.
All right. I appreciate
Lunchtime.
everybody joining. Every Tuesday we will have like more open panels for everybody.
All
that
right,
can
chat. I'm
jump
done
in on.
amending
Lots
this
of you
shit.
guys have been here.
Go
a bunch of
watch
times
Tom Foolery
before.
show
Top
on YouTube.
Dolphin, Clearest, Critical Canadian, Fallen Hour. Like we try to have a spot. Now I don't know if all of you were told. I didn't message all of you. Some of you jumped in afterwards. I am banned on Twitch, so normally when you jump in on these, you may not want to stream it on Twitch. If you did,
Oh no.
Did you say the gamer word or something? What happened?
You said a gamer
You know
sentence.
Actually,
was
Tom was
not
doing a
served.
hot
Here we
tub
go.
stream, and his bikini came a little loose, and he showed a little nip. So
Here we
not
go.
allowed on Twitch
You
anymore.
know
it
what?
really
I'll just-
was an accident.
Free the nipple.
I'll just
Really trying to put the white man down.
I'll just clip you out.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what I mean. Look, we just did a really big panel. A couple of them streamed it. Most of them streamed it on YouTube instead of Twitch. I think they're like American Nacho streamed it, but he just like cut me off and I think muted the stream every time I spoke. So like there are, I guess, ways
delete
around
the
it.
bot. Just delete the bots, Ricky.
Yeah.
Now that you said that, I don't have plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Yeah, you. Oh man.
That's why like I didn't know like if I should actually say it on here, but I also don't want to send out messages to everybody again. So I probably could have just put it in the general chat and said, everybody go check the general chat real quick. But all right, yeah, besides that, I guess
I'm
that's
sure as
just
long
for
as you
like,
have your camera on or whatever, it's probably fine.
yeah, it might be okay.
You'll all get your bans tomorrow. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
no,
one thing, if you don't mind
again,
me, Tom,
there
I would like to.
hasn't been like a massive thing, but yeah, every Tuesday night, you guys are all invited
All right,
back.
later,
I
chat.
believe I
See you.
gave all
I'm
of